All right. The Scituate School Committee is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. I will now call the May 4th, 2026 Scituate Mass School Committee meeting to order at 6 p.m. And we will begin with public comment. Anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing no one in person and looking at Zoom, seeing no hands raised on Zoom, we can move ahead to our student update. And so I will invite our students to give their update.
So a lot of this is keeping in updates with recent deadlines and dates. So to start, the junior prom is May 15th at Grant Links, and it will start at 6 p.m. with a promenade for parents, families, and friends to watch the kids walk down the aisle in fancy outfits. Along with this, seniors' last day is rapidly approaching, and it will be May 20th, with the dinner dance happening that same night at 6 o'clock as well. With this, AP exams are officially underway. They started today, this morning. And with this, just a reminder to all students to take it easy and make sure you're studying. I know a lot of teachers have done an excellent job in classes preparing us and giving us weeks of review. So good luck with all of that. Okay. So along with this, we've had students return from school field trips following break, with the Spanish exchange trip coming back, as well as the DECA competition wrapping up last week. And today we welcome back the students who were on a chorus trip to Disney. And then also students or seniors taking Miss Blake's Film as Literature class will have booked the reel tomorrow and Wednesday evening for showing of their movies they've been working on the past few months.
No, I just, it's past May 1st. May 1st was the deadline to commit to colleges. So all of our seniors are all committed to colleges, and there's an Instagram page where you can see where everyone's going. Yeah, but all the college stuff is all wrapped up now, which is pretty cool.
Very exciting.
Finally.
Finally, yeah.
Congratulations, that's great. Any questions or
so the movies are tomorrow?
Yes, they're tomorrow and Wednesday. It's split between, it's like not the two classes, but just randomly students signed up. There was an email. I can share it with you if you'd like. It's like what groups.
Because I recommend, like, if anybody's looking for something to do.
Yeah.
It's.
I did.
They're awesome.
You guys.
They're very. They're great.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but I am always in awe.
It's a lot of fun as well.
The products. It's fun with like kids.
Yeah. Mr. Lewis in one. He's in one actually.
I'm definitely not.
all right, thank you so much. All right, next we are pleased to recognize the recipients of the American Legion Oratory Competition Scholarship, which will be presented to start by Ms. Sam.
Hi everyone, thank you for having us again this year. I just wanted to start by introducing our veterans who are here with us today. So we have Adjutant Bob Callahan, we have Post Commander Dennis Bedore, and we have Vice Commander Kevin Walsh. So they work all year to facilitate this competition, so I'd just like to invite Bob up to share a few words.
I didn't know I was going to speak, but I've kissed the Blarney Stone twice in my life, so I have the gift of gab. The oratory contest for the American Legion is sort of a high point, at least for me. I am, every year when I participate in this, I am so impressed with the caliber of students here at Scituate High. You know, high school today is a lot different than when I went. I didn't go to Scituate High. Kevin did. I went to Milton High. But again, the caliber of the people, I can't believe how poised and how smart these kids are. So again, we very much enjoy the oratory contest. We also, for the students, we send a couple of boys and a couple of girls to Boys State and Girls State out at Stonehill College, and we try to do as much as we can for the town. But I hope this program continues because I want to be impressed every year.
And just to share a little bit more, this is the 17th year that we've done this and partnered. And these gentlemen here, along with many of the other American Legion members, work all year raising funds. If you've ever been to the transfer station and seen them working and sorting in the corner, and that's to award $2,000 every year in scholarships to students. So I just think it's a testament to your hard work and the fact that many surrounding towns actually do not offer this program anymore. They've fallen off, and I think we're so lucky to have a bustling and thriving organization that still is able to offer this. So thank you guys.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So, okay, now we're gonna recognize the winners, and then we're gonna take a photo. I will take your photo, I promise. Okay, so this year, we'll start with our third place winner, was Macy Murrow. So Macy's speech focused on how schools should take a much more active role in educating students about civics, which I took to heart. And she specifically promoted in-person activities that help motivate students to recognize their individual responsibilities in our democracy. So Macy's gonna win $250 given right now. So congratulations to Macy.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
Thank you.
Good job.
You wanna get a picture?
We'll get a picture of everyone
Of
afterwards.
everyone.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, right.
Thanks, Macy. So our second place winner was Michaela Whitaker. Michaela's speech focused on how important it is for younger Americans to actually know the rights that they have in the Constitution, and that they should take a much more active role in advocating for their beliefs locally and nationally. Because of Michaela's hard work, she also advanced to the state finals and earned 4th place in the entire state. And today she's winning a $750 scholarship. So congratulations to Michaela. And our first place winner this year is junior Maeve Lynch, fresh off the golf course. And so Maeve's speech was an in-depth look at what constitutes hate speech on college campuses. She specifically looked at the balance that our government has in tackling or promoting student safety and seeing personal liberties on these college campuses. Maeve's speech illustrated that tackling complex issues requires thorough research, a nuanced perspective, and a genuine understanding of all sides. She actually didn't leave us with a conclusion. She left it open for the listener to sort of contemplate. So Maeve shows us that the easy answers are rarely the right one. She advanced to the state level competition. She earned 5th in the state. So congratulations to Maeve, who today is earning a $1,000 scholarship.
Very welcome. Good job.
Good job.
I really do want to thank the American Legion. Without them, we would not be able to do this. So thank you to you guys for all your hard work throughout the year.
Our pleasure.
We're just going to take a very brief photo.
All right, ladies.
Where do you want us to stand?
Okay, then you'll just Scituate in the background, right over here,
You want to-
right over here.
You're gonna tell him what to do.
All right, go over here. I'm not used to it.
That right into you, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. All right, ready, guys? Okay, 1, 2. Perfect.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you. Are the text speeches available at all for anyone to read?
Not currently, but we could share them. I'm sure the students would love to share them. I'll ask them when I see them again. They're actually, as Bob says, you leave just feeling so positive about your future. So I'm happy to share them.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
All right, we will move on to our action items. So the first is our minutes from April 22nd. I will entertain a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the school committee approve the minutes from April 27th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. And second, we have a declaration of surplus supplies.
Mrs. Wolf.
Okay, so I currently have an office full of boxes of copier toner and a few other miscellaneous copier supplies. These are leftover from when we converted from the Konica Minolta copiers to our brand new Toshibas. And of course, people had purchased toner, had it on hand in case it ran out, and for better or for worse, we changed out copiers before they got to use all of it. So I would like to have what is currently in my office declared surplus. I do already have one offer from a company that buys toner and then resells it. It's not as high as I'd like, but realistically, it's probably about as good as I'm going to get. So if I go with him, I'll get $750. That's probably what I'll do. Because the nice thing is they'll come get it, and away it goes. I will no longer have an office full of boxes. So that's the first item. And then the second item, I had included a couple of pictures. We have some desks, chairs, and tables. And, with the building of the new school, that school's going to have all brand new furniture. And we have also been getting new furniture grade by grade for the two remaining schools so that everybody, gets nice new brand new furniture. But some of what's left over is usable. It's in pretty decent shape. So if you declare it surplus, I will first see if there's anyone interested in purchasing. If not, I will then offer it for free. And then as a last case scenario, I will contact a scrap dealer and say, hey, that's some great stuff for you.
Questions? Discussion. I have a question about the surplus, because the town will do those like online auctions for stuff they're getting rid of.
Yeah, it's called Gov Deals.
So would we do something like that
Yes.
to start?
Yeah.
We'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that the school committee approves the declaration of surplus supplies as presented. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll now work on getting rid of it.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our report of the superintendent, Dr. Rob.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fenwick. I only have one item this evening, the school choice vote. This is an annual vote. You know that the school choice program was established by Ed Reform, and it allows Massachusetts students to enroll in districts they don't live in unless the district votes to opt out. So this is an opt-out provision. And historically, the reason that we have always used is we simply don't have the space to take in students from other areas. So at this time, I don't see an advantage to Scituate allowing school choice, and would recommend the committee continue to opt out of the program.
Questions?
If we were, just one quick question. So, if we were part of the school, if we had room for students, the town that's sending their student, we would get that money to allocate.
We get some, but it doesn't really offset the total cost. Yes, we would.
I will take a motion. I make a motion that this Scituate Public Schools opt out of the school choice program as outlined in MGL C76 LPC. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. We will move on to the report of teaching and learning. So Mr. Lynch will start that off for us, I think, introducing our various guests.
Sure, I can do it. Sure,
I assume someone.
Yeah.
But if not, I
Sure.
can introduce them.
No problem. This evening, we will be presenting our high school improvement plan and our middle school improvement plan. First up is Mr. Beatty. As we talked about last week, there are several required components for every school improvement plan. Each of our schools has 4 goals around ELA improvement, math improvement, SEL goal, and so Mr. Beatty is here tonight to start with our Gates school improvement plan.
Sure.
Would you like to click through these? No? It's your choice.
I will.
Great, thanks.
I had logged in over there. So thank you for having me tonight. I am representing the Gates School Council this evening in sharing our proposed school improvement plan for 2026 through 2028. This group of individuals who make up our school council are really a great group. They bring a lot of experience, a lot of diverse perspectives as we discuss what we can do to improve and increase achievement at our school. What is challenging about presenting this is we are doing so many things at our school, and what goes into a school improvement plan is essentially the drivers for improvement and achievement. So I don't want anyone to think that this is the only work we're going to be doing for 2 years, but this is a lot of the really important work that we will be taking on as a school in the next 2-year period. The first goal, very similar to our elementary counterparts, deals with ELA proficiency, achievement in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And ultimately, our goal by 2028 is to have 80% of our students proficient or exceeding grade level expectations using the STAR assessment. This is the first year the middle school has used the STAR assessment. It's been in place at the elementary schools for many years. And we plan to benchmark students at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. So that's kind of the assessment component. When we look at instruction, we know that in order to get results, we can't just benchmark. We have to look at kind of the work that goes into helping students meet the standards or exceed them. We have a focus this year in the district around enhancing Tier 1 instruction. So members of the leadership team have all gone through the research for better teaching, analyzing student results for better teaching. And next year we plan to do kind of a collaborative piece with our instructional leadership team that we did a couple years ago called Instructional Rounds, where we are going to create teams of educators kind of going into different classrooms to see the practice in action and to kind of make sure that these 4 particular areas of formative assessment, objectives, criteria for success, and feedback are all in place in every single learning environment. In addition to the instruction and the assessments, we plan on designing and implementing supports. This is the first year at Gates where we have offered a WIN block for all students. It is based on student need, specifically in areas of literacy and math. So we have some practice with that this year. We've collected some data. We've looked at kind of how the interventions we're putting in place for students, whether it be remediation or acceleration, have had an impact on student achievement. And every student gets this at Gates. So we'll be going into year 2 next year. We have a good solid foundation, and it's only getting better as we implement new tools and new programs that target specific areas of need. And where we are right now, in the beginning of this school year, 63% of Gates students were proficient or exceeding in the ELA STAR assessment. We hope that by the end of this year, 70% of our students will be there. Our goal by the end of next year is 75%, and then 80% there. This is the first time we've ever come forward and said we don't want 100% of kids. We do. We want 100% of kids. But the feedback of being realistic and moving the needle. What's great about STAR is it allows us to celebrate the growth of students as well. So we have some students starting in the red and they're moving to the yellow, and that is success and that is wonderful. As a whole, we would like 80% of our students to be in that green or blue area. So that would be for ELA. For math, it's a similar goal. We would like 80% of our students by 2028 to be in the exceeding and meeting expectations. As of right now, 68.5% of our students are already in the meeting or exceeding. So 73% by the end of this year, 77% by the end of next year, and 80% by the end of school year 2028. Very similar to the ELA goal, we have to get there through looking at instruction, making sure that our teachers are using research-based methods to achieve everything they need to achieve in the classroom. In terms of looking specifically at curriculum in math, we adopted the new Savas math program 2 years ago. It takes a while for things to kind of get in motion and then move. So we really are at a point right now where we can start to say, we've done this now for 2 years. What's working, what's not working in terms of not just methods, but actual resources that we're using and instructional approaches. Similar to ELA, we'll be administering a beginning, middle, and end of year assessment, and then also designing the supports that are in place. Those supports would come through either WinBlock or MathLab, which focuses both on remediation and acceleration. We plan to do that for 2 years. And then finally, our last goal is around social emotional learning. We have a very strong multi-tiered systems of support structure at Gates, where we work with teams of teachers and counselors and school staff to really look at the individual students holistically to see what their strengths, what their challenges, what their opportunities may be. Our goal is that by 2028, 100% of students will have undergone a whole child review, which is a way for a team of adults to sit around a table to look at data about each student, to have an interview with every student's family, to have an interview with every student, and match kind of supports and opportunities for each one of our students. And so as of right now, every student is getting a data review. We look at their data, but students are much more than just a number or a color or a little data point. So our goal is at this point for 100% of students over the next 2 years to have been the subject of a whole child review, which is kind of how we use our MTSS structure. What comes out of a whole child review is supports our leadership opportunities, are us getting to know a child and their passions and their interests, and us helping to kind of grow those specific areas, as well as kind of figuring out academically, social, emotionally, behaviorally, personally who these kids are and what they need. So we aren't settling for 80 for that goal. We want 100% on that goal, and we're making good progress towards that as of right now. So those are our 3 goals. Again, we're doing lots more with every curriculum area, with every opportunity we're providing for students and professional development for staff. But these are really the big ones that we think are going to drive improvement in all areas in our school.
I have a question. So thanks so much, Brian, for presenting. I appreciate that you have, I'm looking at the math one, so 2 of the top action items, or the first, which is the top first, are around supporting teachers in the curriculum. I'm wondering, did you and the school council think about ways to track the teachers' progress? Because I see lots of outcomes for students, but I'm just curious, how are we gonna see the shifts and impacts all this PD and work that I know you're doing now is having on teachers? So just wondering what you're thinking about there.
I think one of the things we discussed was just that, of how we are collecting so much data on student performance. We are investing time and energy and resources into improving instruction, but how are we going to actually see it in action? And so that instructional rounds model allows for us to at the end of each cycle of an instructional round, which is essentially where groups of teachers walk into a room, they're looking for something very specific. So like if we're looking for objectives or if we're looking for feedback, we are essentially saying we saw it in 25% of the classes we were in. And so we are gonna establish a baseline at the beginning of the year. And then where we're not seeing it, that's where we need to kind of have conversations and provide more training or get more, feedback into why we didn't see it, because maybe there's a story there. But I think the instructional rounds model is how we're gonna hold ourselves accountable for kind of teacher performance in these particular areas.
Yeah, that feels important, right? Because if the teachers are getting evaluated, we want to give them as much lead time if something is sort of gone awry. So that formative assessment of them, with them really will be really helpful and supportive. So great.
This is great. I think if you reach the kids, meet their SEL needs, then hopefully everything else falls into place.
I personally have no notes on this. I think it's great. I think just to underscore your point about the school improvement plan is not meant to capture everything that anyone's doing in any building, but it is meant to just kind of put a line in the sand around a couple of things that we know we're going to return to next year and the year after that and the year after that. And so in some ways it's quite good to not be too comprehensive in here because before you know it, you could be everything in the kitchen sink in here, and we really want to stay narrow. So I think you did a nice job of staying at the appropriate level of detail for this plan. It's very aligned to our policy on this topic. So
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Lynch.
We'd now like to invite up Principal Loranger to present the high school improvement plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for having me. Is this on? Okay. So I want to thank our school council, Mrs. Fenwick and Mr. Marshman, who's my high school principal, who's here with us tonight. And when I was looking for a chair, a school committee member to be on, a community member to be on, Bruce Marshman reached out. I said, "Oh boy, that's my high school principal. So how cool is that to go around and big impact in my life." So thank you very much for being here, Mr. Marshman. I appreciate it. I also want to thank Mrs. Kirk and Mr. Leto, who are here as well. Help put the supports in place that we will need to execute this school improvement plan, and of course our school council, who did a great job. We could not have really put together the plan without them. Our first slide is just a show of who's on our school council. We do have a big school council with 4 parents, 4 teachers, 4 students, and a committee member and our school committee member. Okay, so the first slide is about our student to teacher ratio. Right now we're at 14.2, which is really low class sizes, which is good, but that's going to change. We're graduating 163 seniors and 203 8th graders are coming in next year. So our enrollment will increase next year. The following year, we have currently 174 juniors, and we're gonna have 233 7th graders coming in. So we see an upgrade in some of our numbers that are gonna increase the next 2 years. This slide, we tried to highlight some of the things that we're doing at Scituate High School to focus on academic achievement. Some of the highlights are that Scituate High School's ELA and math goals, again, we're going to go through the slides in a few minutes, but is to grow academically through 9th and 10th grade as measured by the basic standard benchmarks, Common Lit and STAR for math. We also offer 26 AP courses, and that's high. That's a big list of AP courses. Scituate High School earned a Distinguished of Gold honor for the AP honor roll, which is we're really proud of that. 84% of our students who took the exam scored a 3 or better, which is an increase from, I believe, was 78 the prior year. And in 2025-26, 49 seniors, or 29%, are enrolled in school to career internships, which is that piece is important too for the well-rounded students. And again, I want to thank our innovation career pathways are really going in the right direction. Right now we have the business pathway, environmental stewardship, and global citizenship. I want to thank Mrs. Kirk and Mr. West for all the work they're putting into that. Our business pathways and our environmental stewardships are both DESE approved. And it's a focus on resume building and interest. And students also receive a stamp on their transcript if they're going through those programs. Dual enrollment is recognized as courses with rigor. This improves college readiness scores. Right now, we're offering 8 courses, which is really good. And those students that are taking those courses can enroll in college credit through Quincy College. I think it's somewhere around $400 a credit or so, $400 a course to get the credit. And that can transfer into any school that they go into that accepts it. They do need a C or better as well to be able to transfer that. Then our Project Lead the Way program is growing. We're now looking to train other teachers in Project Lead the Way, which is a good step forward as well. Our first goal is our English goal. And our goal is by the end of school year 2026-2027, common lit assessments will indicate a significant academic achievement in English. We want 75%, as Ryan had said earlier, with Gates to be a proficient level. We're going to, next year, we're going to test each 9th and 10th grade students 3 times a year, beginning of the school year, middle of the school year, end of the school year. This year we did test 2 times. We're going to test the 3rd time at the end of May. And it's going to take some time because we just started. By the end of school year 27-28, 80% of our students will meet or exceed grade level proficiency in English language arts. We're very kind of similar to what Gates has. We have strategies that we're going to look at to try to achieve these goals. Benchmarking, the common lit assessment, administered 3 times a year, which I just had said, and use that data to help informed teacher instruction. And then tier 1 teaching, strong tier 1 teaching will help achieve our goals, we believe. So we're going to really focus on that, enhance our tier 1 strategies consistently in the classroom, specifically through objectives and formative assessments. Training all English teachers in adolescents literacy for the Hills of Literacy courses will help also improve teaching strategies for our students. And then strategy 3, MTSS. This is our first year we put MTSS into place. Next year, we plan on using MTSS to focus more on tier 1 instruction. But it's really working well. We're identifying students at risk that we're concerned about through the MTSS program, through our case meetings, and able to put some supports in place to help those students. And then English curriculum would be the last goal that we would have. And we have posted lesson objectives and formative assessments in all English classes is what we're looking at. It's going really well. We see that very often as we go in and out of classrooms. Revising our courses using new text. And because we went from separating CP1 and honors levels, now we're using some new tests, new text to help challenge our students. This is our benchmark assessments here, and 51% in the fall of 25 met or exceeded expectations. And in the winter, that improved to 65%. So that's a nice arrow up, which we're excited about. For 10th graders, 58% met or exceeded expectations. And in the winter, that improved to 69%. So they are trending the same way. But again, it's going to take some time because we just started this test. So to really get the data that we're going to need for the next few years. The common assessment correlates with MCAS scores. So with only 2 assessments, it's still early, still early to fully gain the full picture of its validity. Common Lit has enabled us to more effectively track and monitor our students' progress. And we are excited to use this data in years to come to help teaching and learning at Scituate High School. And benchmarks will also be used to determine student placement in courses. Our second goal is our math goal. Very similar, the same numbers we're looking at as we did in English. They were looking at 75% of all of our students will meet or exceed grade level expectations in math. and that's for school year 26-27 by using the STAR assessment. And then in 27-28, we're hoping we can get to 80% will meet or exceed expectations in math. One of our strategies to do that is our benchmarking again. We're going to look at administering that test 3 times. We only administered the test twice this year. We did it at the beginning of the year, and then we're going to do it again at the end of the year. But next year, we're going to move to 3 times. And then strategy 2 is tier 1 teaching, creating supports, extra help in math lab and student work to help students work on math skills is one of our goals, and to enhance tier 1 strategies that are constantly used in classrooms. We're going to try to specifically the objectives and formative assessments. Seeing written objectives in the classroom and visualizing those objectives are really important. The student that's in class can look up and see what they're actually learning, and if they lose track a little bit, they take a look at what the objective is for the class and for the lesson. It helps refocus the student, so we're really excited about that. And then MTS again, redefine win groups to support work completion, use win block and sailor block to add extra supports in math. And then our new math curriculum, Ryan had mentioned that as well with the new textbooks, that's really improved our sequencing in math at the high school from between Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and pre-calculus courses. And again, the posted lesson objectives and formative assessments in all math classes. Here's our data that we had looked at. So when we tested in fall, we ended up with 78% of the students met or exceeded expectations both in 9th and 10th grade. So I took a deeper dive and I took a look at what MCAS was. In 8th grade in 2025, 61% of the students met or exceeded expectations, and in 8th grade it was 60. So right around that 61%. So, I mean, the STAR data has shown benchmark exceeding our goal of 75. But with 78% on STAR and 60 on MCAS, we feel we may be somewhere in the middle. So we're going to wait. It's kind of early to really tell how we're going to look at this, but we're going to wait to see what the scores are next year. So we need more data to be able to really find out if that 78% is correct. STAR reviews to track student progress, and then when we get our results next year, we're going to start putting those supports back in place again by using our win block, and then we'll be able to take the benchmarks we find out in algebra, and as a result, we can determine course recommendations and placements with some of our students. Our third goal we're really excited about, this is our social emotional goal. What we're recognizing is through our peer data, we're recognizing that we're finding that sophomore students are struggling a little bit with more than other classes in assertiveness and learning interest. So we're looking at this data and thinking, how can we support our sophomore students? We have a freshman academy at the high school that really takes care of the freshmen, and then when they go off to their sophomore year, they seem to be in a little bit of a struggling situation in certain areas. So we took a look at that, and the peer data for 10th graders. It's identifying that learning interest, which is a challenge for them. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a few things in place to help support our sophomore students. MTSS through CASE, we're going to take a look at all our sophomore students and try to find out who is struggling and have them meet with guidance counselors and try to support them that way. All 9th and 10th grade health class curriculum, we're going to have some sort of SEL based in there that they can start to work with some of these sophomore students in the curriculum to find out if we can help support. Counselors, our counselor now will be for all 4 years. In the past, we had a freshman counselor. We're going to go away from that format and have the counselor with the student for all 4 years. And also the special ed teacher will be with the student for all 4 years to help build that connection, to try to build that continuity. And then we're also going to shift our Lighthouse program. Mrs. Clancy is going to be with 9th and 10th graders. Mrs. Lopes is going to be with 11th and 12th graders. And then we'll loop around to help, again, support and keep constant contact with our sophomore students to help support our sophomore students. And that is like Ryan also said, we have a lot of other things going on and that we're doing at Scituate High School. But our 3 goals we're really excited about, and I really feel we're more prepared this year to tackle and to take on these goals than we ever have been in the past. So I want to thank the school council members and everyone for helping with that.
I have a couple of questions. Peter, do you want to go?
I just have one quick one. And this seems to be pretty consistent, I think, in years past too, but I know MCAS only assesses up to 10th grade. I'm wondering, I guess, I like the goals, but it only goes 9th and 10th grade. Does that mean that we're not doing anything with 11th and 12th graders? Are we assuming that learning just stops, or that we don't want to measure it? I'm just curious, because it seems pretty consistent in past that it's only 9th and 10th graders, but there's still 2 more years to go.
I think, well, I'll let Mark answer, but I think 11th and 12th grade gets a lot more differentiated in terms of the kind of courses that students can take. The math gets certainly more advanced and more differentiated, and there's no common assessment that will allow us to look at that. So it's really becomes more focused on the individual classes, individual teachers when it gets to the higher levels.
And we feel if we look at the data and strengthen tier 1 teaching around those supports that they might need, that it's going to help them when they become juniors and seniors. So really take a look at the 9th and 10th grade groups and try to put them on a path for success.
Thank you.
To that point, I would imagine that the tier 1 strategies that are referenced in the plan are not just exclusively focused on the grades 9 and 10. I would imagine those are also in grades 11 and 12. So the same strategies that are being applied to help make improvements in the lower grades will be applied in the upper grades as well. And those are the same strategies that are just good teaching, solid practice that we want to be seeing more of and supporting teachers around.
You see teaching and learning throughout all 4 grade levels. Good practice.
I have to concur with Peter though. I feel like, with all due respect, I hear what you're saying about common assessment. I would love to challenge central office in the high school to think harder about ways to show us progress with our 11th and 12th graders, even if it's just to say they're taking a diversity of math courses with success and their APs are looking like this and they're doing these pathways, because we know there's a ton of amazing things going on at the high school. And so I think finding ways, even if it's qualitative data, it doesn't have to be assessment data, just to, so we're not forgetting about our 11th and 12th graders, which I know we're not, but like in these sort of presentations.
Yeah, to that, I think you have the data. You could say we want 80% of our juniors and seniors to get a grade 3 or better in their AP. I think we already have that embedded somewhere, but that might be a measurable goal and something to put into the plan. I don't know what the percentage is, just stating that might be one way. I know they're all different subjects, but.
Yeah, right now we had 84% that received a 3 or better, but that's, when I look at the AP data and I get those results back,
that's all grades. But it's mostly juniors.
It's mostly juniors and seniors.
Couple of there's probably a handful of sophomores.
I'd say it's 90% or more juniors and seniors.
Just human geo and seminar.
I know there's a lot of kids in human geo, and I know now freshmen can take APs.
We will see more underclassmen in years to come. Definitely seminars new and 2 new AP classes for underclassmen.
I just think that when we talked about the district goals, we did talk about this a little in our retreat in the summer. We did talk about, not wanting to add too many goals, because the minute we start doing that, it just becomes a lot of things. And we were the ones that narrowed to this point. And so I just want to make sure we remember that and sort of like if we want to change that in the future, we can. But the conversation we had about that was to not kind of overload and say we want to be doing this and this and this and this and this. Like, yes, we're still doing all of those things. And we're about to hear, for example, in the 2 presentations tonight for social studies and science, we will hear data about AP and progress and things like that. So we're not hearing that or ignoring that, I would say. I just think if we want to make a shift in these types of plans, that's a shift at a higher level that these plans are then derived from.
Yeah, I just think it's something to think about, because even if we articulate it in a different way, that's 2 grades in a school that we just want to make sure, that's all. So, can I ask? I was curious about, I have a couple of questions. So in the ELA, the table, strategy for English curriculum, it seems like most of the bullets are around text, revising using text, new texts were ordered, honored level text or higher level text, Common Lit provides short stories and articles. So are we just are we banking on the hope that the text is what's driving the challenge there? Or I guess I'm just wondering, it seems to me that we have a lot of really brilliant teachers in the classroom too who are using the text. And so just wondering like what that interplay looks like. I don't even know if that's the right word. Does that make sense? Like it feels like it's not just a textbook. And so just wondering what the thought was there about that.
You mean the text? Well, the text dimension, because it's their new text that they're using, and they feel it's helping to drive the instruction in a really good direction.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I met with a lot of English teachers when we were writing the plan too, and sat down with them and said, "How do you feel about the new text and what you're working with?" And they felt like it's really challenging our students with more rigor.
Oh, I don't disagree with the text report, and I guess my wondering is it feels like we're underselling the importance of the teacher that's in the room with the text. That's all. And so sort of the conversation I was having with Ryan about making sure the teachers are also included in that success metric, whatever it is. That's all.
Okay.
For that one. What's the other question? Oh, maybe this is my not understanding, and Maria, I know you know standardized tests very well, so maybe you can help too. So for the math goal, if our goal is 75% of all students meeting or exceeding, and our STAR assessment is already at 78%, can somebody just help me understand why we're sticking with that goal?
Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah,
I brought
that's-
this up as
okay.
well, and I think what we talked about in our meetings with the school council was just that was one data point, one
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
And
We just think it's
have
really early.
So there's
a
some
ton of
uncertainty.
confidence in it
Okay, that's what I was
because
asking.
when you compare it to the same
MCAS.
cohorts MCAS scores, there's such a discrepancy.
Yeah.
Like if they had
Okay.
been closer, I think we would have felt a
Okay.
little more confident.
Okay.
But because it's such a new assessment, it's new to the students, it's new to the teachers, it was our first time, we've
Yep.
only been administrating it one time. So as soon as we have a little bit more, some more administrations of it, I
Yep.
think that we can figure that out. And what
Okay.
we talked about was if we continue
Yeah, if
to
we
hear
go through 3 rounds of it and we're still
Amazing.
high, we'll
we'll
increase our
adjust.
goal. Yeah, we'll move
You
our
know,
goal
we
up.
talked about that. We said we will gladly adjust
100%.
that goal upwards
Yeah.
if we, but we just didn't want to prematurely adjust upwards
Totally
and
makes
then
sense.
realize like, oh shoot, we really
Yeah.
gotten ourselves into a
Yeah.
mess just because that was such a large.
I think the end of next year we'll have a much better idea.
I just wanted to make sure I was
Yeah.
hearing what I
In
thought
the
I was
other
hearing.
grade levels, STAR and MCAS are much closer, so that was like a real outlier.
Okay.
It was surprising.
It was very surprising.
So different.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
different.
And it's not
It
supposed
was
to be.
61% and 78% on Wednesday.
I mean, granted, we are comparing their performance on an 8th grade.
Yes.
So that is like, we don't have a perfect comparison.
Yeah.
So.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood
That is
your
why.
reasoning.
Yeah, no, we
Okay.
did talk about that at length.
Yes,
Same question.
Okay.
That's hence the asterisk there.
Yeah. I think the other math question is just similar to the question I raised on the ELA, which is around the math curriculum, noting posting lesson objectives, rearranging scope and sequence, but it looks like the sequence was improved with the new textbook. And so again, it feels like the teacher is missing from that formula a little bit, but just a wondering. The last curiosity, I appreciate the focus on sophomores. Maria and I were talking before our meeting, you know, sort of, it makes sense. The sophomores are sort of not the freshmen anymore. They're not the upperclassmen, so I get that. I think what's sort of hopeful though, if we look at the data, what's interesting is the strength is action orientation, but low on assertiveness. So I would just want to understand, like, how are we holding both of those things? Because those feel like they could potentially be in conflict there, right? And so wondering what's driving the action orientation. Could we leverage that to bring up their motivation and assertiveness? So I think it's great that you're digging into the data. Lots more to learn there. Maybe our SEA director can be helpful in some of that.
Thank you, good point.
Anything else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the third goal, in the strategy 1, you have the focus of learning interest, according to the peer data.
Yeah.
But are you just focusing on just that, or is there other areas?
The two
challenge?
major areas were the assertiveness and the learning interest. And we don't know if it's motivation, we don't know if when they leave their freshman year and they start their sophomore year that they're not, you know, that's what we're trying to take a deeper dive into to try to find out why that's happening. And it's 3 years in a row. It's 3 sophomore classes in a row that we're finding that data to be consistent around 22, 21%. We'd like to see that drop to around 10% or under that. So we don't know. So we're making some changes and to try to support the sophomores as they come into the school year to see if we can't get some motivation and to find out why that's happening. Because 3 years in a row is real. That's data. You know, that shows that that's.
Yeah, I mean, perseverance is I'm reading this correctly. Like, that's the same as learning interest.
It's low, you need
Also
a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we've maybe talked a little bit about with the pair in other settings too, when other principals have presented, it, as most assessments, it sort of gives you that like little diagnostic window, but it doesn't always explain the why,
No,
you
it
know?
doesn't.
And so
Yeah.
then, you know, you gotta get behind that and figure out, okay, what does it mean to
Yeah.
have scored low on these things and how, where is this coming from? So
Yeah.
I think similar to the elementary schools, I
Yeah.
would say the high school's probably in a period of exploration now. But this is, I think, a clearer picture of pair data that we've had in the past. So I feel like we've made good progress in the way that we're using the assessment.
Yeah.
But it still can't answer some of those questions yet, you know.
I think some of it may be connections. We're looking into that. That's why we're keeping the guidance council with the students now all the way through.
Yeah.
You know, for those connections and using our Lighthouse program a little bit differently as well to try to connect with the students better.
Ryan Beatty, not to put you on the spot, but do you know if learning interest is low at the middle school?
It is.
It is. Yeah, it's such a curiosity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's in school and out of school, so it's not just, but anyway.
It's steady.
Yeah, consistently challenged.
Any other questions on the high school? I don't think so. All right, thank you.
Thank you for reporting every week. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. You guys are great students. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah. Sounds good. Tom has another meeting. Okay.
It's okay. Busy man.
Yep. All right, so I think next we will welcome, you wanna do this, Ryan?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Our next presentation
How's
under teaching and learning is Mr. Patrick Newton. He's going to give us a teaching and learning update on science, technology, and engineering. I'm just going to share some slides on this behalf.
This is very exciting to come talk to science, tech, and engineering on Star Wars Day. May the fourth be with you. I was told I could not come do this dressed as Darth Vader. What's really weird is I didn't ask, people just told me that.
We wouldn't mind it.
Yeah. Next time.
We'll schedule this again next year. So yeah, we're going to talk about teaching and learning and all the cool stuff that goes on in our STE programming across Gates and the high school, so grades 6 through 12. We will talk a little bit more about data, because we've done that a lot, but also talk about how as a department, what we're seeing, what we're noticing, and kind of how we're reacting to those noticings. And ultimately, I just like to show off cool stuff that our students get to do because our teachers help facilitate really cool experiences for them. So we'll take a look. This is now obviously way out of date because we sit here in May looking at a test that was taken last May. But this was our Gates STEMcast, so I will remind you, as I always do, that this is a unique test in that it covers 3 years worth of standards. So this is a test taken in spring of 8th grade that covers 6th, 7th, and 8th grade standards. So what I've given you is our normal breakdown by performance category, and then in histograms that you can't really read, which I apologize for, we can look at individualized, sort of categorize of items. So the far left, we look at how our students did on constructed response, which is maybe what we used to call open response questions, versus selected response, which is a kind of large category that includes multiple choice, but in the more recent iterations of the test has included some sort of fill in the blanks, drag and drops where you're completing a model by bringing the piece to the right part in the picture, a handful of other sort of the answer's there, but you got to kind of figure out where it is and how it goes questions. And if you notice, we did very well, or our students, I should say, did very well in those selected response items. While I'm not overly concerned about constructed response items, we do see that there's some work there that could be done. We beat the state by less and earned a fewer percentage of the available points. I should point out that is the difference between the top graph and the bottom graph. The top graph showing us how much better than the state average our students did in each of these categories. The lower graph showing us the percentage of available points in each of those categories that our students earned. So very consistent when you look at that bottom graph across all of the 4 domains of Earth, space science, life science, physical science, and tech engineering, which is great. And I have sort of called out that last one, which is science practices, in part because that has been a big part of the focus of my work with the department. Per DESE, at least 50% of the test items on MCAS are dual coded to a science practice, meaning they are not just content knowledge, but they are supposed to also be testing the student's ability to, the way I word it is, do science. It's actually much higher than 50%. For this middle school test, it was actually 81% of available points were dual coded to a practice. So that's what we've been working on primarily, is how do we teach and how do we assess student progress on those science practices. Because the question will come up, it was 79% on the high school bio was dual coded to practices also. So they're really hovering around 80%, even though they word it as at least 50%. We've been consistent. I think I've already mentioned that. We saw the strong performance on the selected response items. We do see some room for improvement on those constructed response items. This test is in a state of transition. And my last bullet point there mentions we've been a bit ahead of this change. Maybe in retrospect, we were a little too far ahead of this change at the beginning. What that means to be in a state of transition is they have rewritten the test. They have changed the format of the test. And so this group of students that we're looking at data from that are currently sitting in 9th grade, as well as the students that are currently sitting in 8th grade, are taking half and half tests. So when they sit, half of the test they're taking is the old test and half is the new test. DESE's only reporting data from the old test items. So if we were a little too far ahead in getting ready for the new test and our kids were super pumped for the new test, now we're getting data based on the half that was the old test. That said, I think they still did well. So I'm not overly concerned there, and hopefully we see even better when we sort of get to it. If we jump to the high school, this causes a little more pause and reflection. We do see a noticeable decrease in our achievement for last year, for the year 2025. The graphs that you're looking at are the exact same sort of structure and layout. So again, we can see how we did. I added the all items to this graph, but otherwise we can see here the opposite. We did considerably better when compared to the state on the constructed response items than on the selected response items. That's weird. Like, we don't see that. I don't have an explanation for that, but it is a noticing and something that points out is that's not common. The molecules to organisms category of questions is clearly where we need to focus the most content. And again, the science practices jumps out. I did note it's the bottom bullet point under observations. There were 7 items, 7 questions where we scored below the state average, or our kids scored below the state average. 4 of those involved the practice of modeling. So one of our big focuses in our departmental professional development this year was aligning our understandings and our expectations for that practice of scientific modeling. So we're hoping we see some progress being made there. If we jump to AP, I'm really excited to say, if you look at the graph on the right, which is our percentage of students passing our AP exams, the entire department is clearly trending in what I would say is the correct direction. We're looking at a very high
overall pass rate. Pass rate, as it is for all the other content areas, is defined as a 3 or better on the AP exam, which is out of 5. The data on your left-hand side is just showing you how numbers of exams have changed over the years. Since the introduction of environmental science, we see the overall number of exams is much higher. One inconsistent point here is Physics C. For example, that course is not running this year due to lack of requests. And that's why it doesn't appear in the right-hand graph. It would just kind of be points, but not a line. We do anticipate that runs next year, which is great, and we're looking forward to that. The difference between Physics 1 and Physics C being calculus. So Physics 1 is an algebra-based physics course. Physics C is a calculus-based physics course. Throwing in our Project Lead the Way, which I know Mr. Lorenzo mentioned, which is great. Last year, we had 20 out of the 27 students that took what the LTW was calling last year an end-of-course exam. Starting this year, they're calling it the final exam, making it a lot more firm-sounding, but it's the same thing. And of course, they have different verbiage. So our 20 out of 27 scored either distinguished or accomplished. You can pretty much equate those to exceeding expectations and meeting expectations if they were MCAS terminology. And our numbers have grown, 69 total students in Project Lead the Way courses right now. That's across 4 different offerings. Last year, there were only 2. We have added capstone to the program of studies, so that's a sort of culminating. It's meant to be the 3rd year of Project Lead the Way, particularly engineering. And we have, as Ms. Lorenzo said, a handful of teachers, 4 teachers scheduled to attend training in PLTW this summer so that we can continue to expand our capacity in those areas. I should point out that end-of-course exam is one of the 2 criteria for students to earn college credit through Project Lead the Way. So they need to earn a passing score on that exam and an 85 or better in the course as their grade. And the cool stuff that we work on. So last year, our big focus in PD was claim evidence reason writing, again, connected to practices, specifically arguing from evidence and data analysis. We have this year been collecting data. We don't have it all pulled together for you nice and neat now. Next year, when I come to talk to you, I will. And we look forward to that too. But we've created a department-wide rubric that's easily applicable in basically any of our areas so that we are focusing on the skill and able to provide students with feedback and track progress in that domain. We have been working on that heavily this year with modeling, as I've already mentioned. So we have a draft rubric kind of out there right now. We plan to collect that data next year. We have definitely improved our understandings and applications of that practice in the classroom. So that's a great thing. We've expanded our partnership with Holly Hill Farm. They're up the road in Cohasset, so they've come in and run lessons in chemistry for us. We've expanded our overlap with them in environmental science. We've sent some classes there. They've come here for others. So that's been a great, productive partnership for us. Still working on and looking to work on next year is continuing to grow our environmental stewardship pathway program. Expecting 6 graduates right now, and just got in a whole bunch of cool stuff from a Skills Capital grant that we're really looking forward to making sure we know how to use, and even more importantly, the kids know how to use, and then actually, like I already said, do the science. We plan to apply for pathways designations from DESE in the areas of healthcare and engineering next year also. That engineering application will be the joint venture with our math colleagues. We surveyed our current 9th graders across the board. We used their biology classes for that. And you can see those 2 had what are, in my opinion, really kind of reasonable levels of interest, particularly the healthcare. 37, more than 1 out of 3 kids says, I'm interested in that. I think we have to respond to that in some way. So we'll get those applications in the fall. I believe that happens in October. And as you've been told before, we are preparing for our dual enrollment opportunities in honors chemistry and honors anatomy physiology. And what our students actually do, if I showed you everything we do, we'd be here all night. So here's some 6th graders out with the vernal pool. collecting some specimens. They're working specifically on their standard that talks about cells, and all living things are made of cells, and where cells come from and how they work. We may as well use living stuff that we've got right on campus. So here they are collecting samples, and everyone has to love that recent retiree, Ms. Chambers, still comes back to help kids collect muck out of the bottom of that vernal pool. Here's two of our all-stars that are completing, or not actually completing yet. One is junior, the environmental stewardship pathway, but here they are actually presenting their independent research findings at CSCR, Center for Student Coastal Research, which is again up the road in Cohasset. They put on a great activity or great event, the State of the Harbor, where high school students from kind of up and down the South Shore really get a chance to talk about cool research they've done in the oceanography or environmental science realms. I mentioned our Holly Hill Farm. So on the left, we see some of our high school environmental science students at Holly Hill Farm in one of these sort of greenhouse, I think they're actually called hoop houses, looking at some planting. And on the right-hand side, we got a assist from our friends at DPW and sewage treatment as our AP Environmental Science. The AP Environmental Science standards actually make a specific suggestion that students go to a sewage treatment plant. So we did, and off they went. Here's some of our engineering students. To the two sides are high school, the middle is Gates. I particularly enjoyed that middle. That's Ms. Conway, one of our Gates engineering teachers, using a leaf blower to test if the building design the students had would survive a hurricane. And you can see the kids celebrating that theirs did in fact survive the hurricane force winds from the leaf blower. It's a lot of fun that goes on down there in Gates. I had the fun of going on this trip just last week with some of our ornithology students, going down to Manamet Conservation Sciences, who does all kinds of cool data collection and tracking of migratory bird species. Ornithology is the biological study of birds, so there's really no better way to do that than get to the people that really do it. That's right down the road in Plymouth. A handful of biology students, AP and 9th grade, involved in a handful of different inquiry-based labs. This is one of my other big things of, we don't necessarily tell kids how to solve problems. We say, here's the question, here's some equipment, figure it out. Again, getting to those practices, getting to how science is done. And that, I believe, is all I have for you this evening.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Reed? Just lots of good stuff.
Yeah, I think you answered them all. I said a couple. I want to go back to that constructed responses. I agree with you that it's odd that in the was in the science. Sorry, on the STEM MCAS, the constructed responses were
high school biology or constructed responses were
good,
considerably better using the state as the metric than our selected responses.
So could you just confirm for me which grade each one of those? Biology is 9th.
Biology is 9th grade. And I should point out, this is an inconsistency that causes us miscommunication sometimes. I mean that internally, externally, and everywhere else. DESE reports 10th graders data. So I am ahead of what you would see if you went online to look at DESE right now. So while this step down in achievement will actually hit the high school's accountability in the fall. So we are that little bit ahead. But this is our current 10th graders that DESE has not necessarily reported out yet on, that were in 9th grade when they took this test last year.
I guess my question is, I'm trying to figure, and I'm sure you guys have already tried to figure this out, and I'm just trying to figure it on the fly. Is the constructed response like an open-ended question? So
Yes.
It could potentially be the phrasing, like the word structure is not correct, or is just the real answer to the question is wrong, or is it a combination? I'm trying to find a correlation because maybe there's something we're doing in 9th grade ELA that led them to score better in the biology. Just something.
It is quite possible. I'll further complicate the observation by our percentage of points earned in those two categories is very similar, 58 to 57. So it might be one of those things where the state did poorly and we didn't. So that there's so many variables at play there. I hate to sound like the science person, but I am. There's too many variables at play for me to isolate what one it is.
No, I would have been easier if the scores were similar, because I would have we know that some of these, I'm thinking constructive responsive sentence structure and so on and so forth, and we've identified at the elementary school that we need to improve that, right, our writing, so that might have nothing to do with it.
They're not supposed to be scoring science constructed responses based on things like spelling and grammar.
And then the last question I had was on the AP. So AP just started 3 years ago or 2 years ago, 2023?
Yeah, 2023 was, school year 2022-23 was the first year we offered it in-house.
No, I know it's been a great experience. My question is, I mean, the first year we had it, we scored, or 50% of our students scored above, which is a great baseline. So I'm just wondering, it'd be interesting to know why that's been so successful. I mean, I know that it's the instruction, but it also means that it fits well with our curriculum, right, for the biology, chemistry, and then the apes or whatever. I just thought it was an interesting perspective to get over 50% or 50% in the first year is pretty good.
I totally agree, and I agree with you. I'll give credit to the teachers and students that were in those classrooms that performed that well, and notice that it's improved since then, right? As teachers have gotten more familiar with the test, with the curriculum, they're even better able to prepare students for that assessment.
And the AP bio is what, junior year or sophomore year?
It's a combination of juniors and seniors, but it's majority juniors.
So they take regular biology freshman year.
Correct.
And then they can decide to take AP bio sophomore, junior year.
So our dictated sequence, if you will, is biology in the 9th grade and chemistry in the 10th grade. Yeah. And then in the 11th and 12th grades, the umbrella opens. And each of these are options really in each of those grade levels, with physics C being the one that's almost exclusively seniors because they have to have calculus. As well as honors anatomy, which we've mentioned exists, other levels of environmental science, a handful of other options.
The scores in the bio are good as well. And I think that those are probably our pretty high achieving students who decide to take bio for a second year.
Agreed.
Right? Did you guys take it?
I didn't take.
Oh, come on, Luke.
No, I'm sorry.
I think it's interest too. Like,
Yeah,
it's really something you're interested in.
Correct.
You gotta do better.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And I think correlates to that high number of kids that we said are potentially interested in healthcare careers in the future, and that help feed into a pathway there.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
It looks like chemistry in 2024 and 2025 is smaller, but is it because they're taking the other courses? Like purple shows up there. It's hard to tell by the shape if it's
Our number of test takers.
Yeah.
We saw a slight decrease when we added the lab blocks.
Okay.
Presumably because it adds a constraint on a kid's schedule.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yeah, I was wondering if you mentioned adding a pathway in the science or biology realm, because I remember my freshman year there was talk of a biomedical pathway that students could achieve. I know that influenced courses I took, but it fell through. But I was wondering if that was something that's still in the works.
That's ultimately where this healthcare pathway that we're mentioning comes from. It's very funny because at the time we surveyed students and it was not particularly popular or an interesting area. And since we said, well, I guess we, aren't investing our time there, all we've done is here. But we should have. So better late than never, maybe.
Yeah. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next, we'd like to introduce Ms. Lesniak, who's going to give us an update on the History and Social Studies Department.
Hi everyone. I don't have any Star Wars jokes, but I looked up historical events on today. They're all depressing, so I decided not to share. Sorry.
May the force be with you.
Thank you. Great. So thank you for having me today. I wanted to start, I think I've shown this to you guys every year, but when I came into this role 3 years ago, my first task was really to sort of say, what is our purpose here? What are we doing? And this is what our department sort of collaboratively came up with. I think I've said to anyone who will listen many times that history education has or should have changed at this point, that it's no longer about being a content monster. Google exists, AI exists, and so it's all about skills in my world. So can students communicate their thoughts? Can they evaluate sources? Can they be curious about complex issues? These are the things that, yes, the content is important and it gets us to these skills, but these are the things that we hope kids walk away understanding. I wanted to start just with an overview. We made a massive transition last year and purchased new curriculum resources for every single one of our courses. I wanted to give a little bit of feedback, so I surveyed teachers and students to get a little bit of sense of how it's going in addition to all the conversations that we have. 100% of teachers, so all the teachers took the survey, 100% of them reported that it aligns well with their grade level standards, which I was so happy to hear since that was one of our criteria and they picked them, so that's good. 95% of teachers reported that the curriculum resources have had a positive impact on student learning. I gave you some quotes from some of the teachers. I think the things that stand out to me is certainly the more relevant and recent information being available for students, but also just the varied levels of text that are now available as we get them in digital formats. Students can change the reading level on some of the text. They can have it actually read to them. There are different speeds. They can highlight. There's lots of different ways that they can interact with the text digitally that kids are appreciating. It also can translate. And so for a certain population, that's also really important. I think the other thing that really stood out to me is the building literacy skills and reading stamina. I think having kids sit with a text alone for 20 minutes is increasingly becoming really challenging for students. And the idea that you have to sit with a text and really synthesize what it's telling you is hard but important work for students to be doing, and these texts allow us to do that. Some teachers really did indicate the need for further professional development. We all got trained in the various textbooks at the end of last year. Teachers had summer professional development time. We also at the start of this year had people sort of on demand that could answer our questions as issues came up. But I think that after a year of utilizing these resources and talking to teachers, there's tweaks they want to make. You almost have to go through it once before you realize some of the changes. So teachers are really looking over this summer and at the start of next year for some of that time to do that refinement now that they've had a year with the new texts. I also surveyed students. So we had 70% of students who responded. 63% of students reported using the text most days or every day. I want to be clear that it's not our goal that students use the text every single day, but we do want it being one of the primary resources that kids are using in the class. So I would like to see that number get a little bit higher. I think that will naturally happen as teachers gain comfort with it. 73% of students reported that the resources are easy or very easy to understand. I was really happy with that number. We spent a lot of time looking at the Lexile levels when we were deciding on texts, and so that tells me that we picked texts that are an appropriate challenge for students. And then 57.5% of students reported that it makes them either a lot or a little more interested in what they're learning. And I didn't know what to expect with that question, honestly, when I asked it. But I think what it comes down to is, and we see it in classrooms actually, if kids, it's very nostalgic for me, but kids flip through a text, they finish their little assigned portion, and then you see kids like looking at the map, or they're like looking at some of the things later. And I do think it's sparking a little bit of interest in a way that a digital book you scroll and you close. And so I think there's a benefit to having the paper copies. I do want to give a shout out to, we ended up purchasing in the end 2,700 books. That is no small feat to move 2,700 physical books. And so this is a picture of students who gave up some of their time and volunteered to number and distribute those. So as you guys know, this is our last year was our first required civics MCAS. We had been piloting this for a number of years before this, but this was the first year where we got full data points back. We were pretty pleased with these numbers, still areas of growth for sure. I think what stood out is the 59% of students meeting or exceeding expectations. That put us within a percentage point of most of our neighboring towns, so sort of right in there in terms of performance. 1% of students not meeting expectations in the first year. Certainly we want to help whoever those 1 or 2 kids are, but that was a good number that we were happy with. I think what was interesting as we dug into the data is that there really is pretty consistent content knowledge. If you look at that correct by category, it was the exact same number. So across different standards, kids are performing about the same. I think what stood out to us though and this relates to our next steps, and it's funny you guys talk about constructed or selected responses, is that our constructive responses were lower than our selected responses. And I think what that led us to say is we do so much work with writing, but clearly some places we have improvements to make. And so this year we've really tried to increase the frequency of writing assignments and also the frequency of writing assignments that use primary source documents. So the Civics MCAS oftentimes asks students to look at 2 or 3 documents. They have to synthesize the documents, answer some questions about them, but then put them together in a response. And so that's the skill that we're working on both in class and also in some of the win blocks. So onto the high school, I just wanted to point this out, especially as you guys talk about other metrics for success. I just think it's really remarkable and a testament to our amazing teachers that our elective enrollment continues to grow so steadily. So these are courses that students are choosing to take in one of their very, very small choice blocks. So last year or this current year, 62% of students at Scituate High School chose to take an elective in addition to the required coursework that they already have. I think you guys may know that we have a 3-year requirement, not a 4-year requirement, but the number of students who choose to take our electives far exceeds if we were to require it for a 4th year. So kids are taking our courses in really high numbers. Next year, we're projected actually to 475. So we're up into the high 60s percentage of kids who are choosing to take a course. And I think it's also worth noting that last year and then, this current year and next year, we're actually not even able to meet student demand. So we have students signing up for courses that we are not able to place. And so that I think is a wonderful problem to have, but it is something that we're facing, especially with the increasing numbers that are coming in. So these are some of our electives. AP US History doesn't count as an elective because that's meeting a core requirement, but all the other ones are electives. And what you see, I think, is really remarkable performance by students. So in every course, we have students consistently outpacing the global average, in some cases by up to, well, I think one course we're actually 1.4 above the global average. So I think students are doing really well. If you look at enrollment, there are a couple ups and downs, but overall pretty steady. And then also worth noting that last year was the first year we offered comparative government, which offers a much more global approach, which really came from student demand. And last year was also the first year we offered AP Seminar. And that course is one of our 2 that's open to freshmen. And we do actually have a predominant number of freshmen in that course. So again, first year to be meeting expectations, mid-80s, we were pretty happy with that number. So what's currently underway? The first bullet is really just what I was talking about in terms of curriculum resources, continuing to refine, continuing to look at our instruction, continuing to look at our assessments. And along with that, it goes hand in hand. You can't really refine assessments without refining your writing instruction. So both of those things are ongoing and in progress. I also wanted to shout out, I really do feel like a lot of our social studies teachers are taking on leadership roles in the field. They're presenting at state and national conferences ranging from women's history to geographic tools to civics. And I really do think this shows that not only do they excel in their course in their field, but also really wanting to share that expertise and also learn from others. So they're still, even though they're doing really well, wanting to go out and learn more in addition to teach others. What's also underway, we added AP Research. So last year it was AP Seminar, this year we added AP Research. Together, those 2 courses make up the Capstone Diploma Program. If students score 3 or higher in both of those courses, in addition to 4 additional AP courses, they get a diploma designation. And so we do have a number of students who have actually gone through both courses, and so will be eligible in the upcoming year for that. What's also underway, and you saw it tonight a little bit, is we really continue to work to build strong local partnerships. So we work with the American Legion, we work with the VFW to run a different speech competition, we work with you guys in the Historical Society on some of the naming pieces that you've done, and we also re-partnered, it had gone on for a long time and sort of dipped and came back this year with METCO to send students to Advocacy Day, which really is a perfect opportunity to bridge both of our worlds together. Just to give a little civic action update, I do think it's important. We really are expanding the civic action project. Last year was the first year we had a major kickoff event. actually the second year, I should say, a major kickoff event. And last year we had over 50 community members join us. Many of you joined, which I appreciate. And I think what was most helpful to students is that we had a wide range of people. So really trying to branch, we have community and town officials, we have nonprofit leaders, we have different avenues. We're really trying to help kids figure out what their interest is so they can create a project and go after something that they feel passionate about. So that's been going well. We continue to look to expand that. We're also having students do well at the statewide level. So 4 groups last year presented at the State Civic Showcase. 1 group received a statewide research and investigation commendation, which was amazing for them. It really is about their advanced preparation before they started their project. We also last year we had 1 student, this year we have 5 students who were selected as statewide civic action leaders. What that means is they went to a civic action showcase as part of a project and elected to apply to continue their work. So now they're giving feedback to the state about the project, and they also act as student ambassadors on the day of the statewide showcase. So it's a really great leadership opportunity for them, but also shows that we do have students interested in continuing beyond the required work. And we continue to have visits from other districts. I think all districts are trying to figure out how to make this civic project work. We all understand the value, and so happy to help as people come in and see us. What's on deck moving forward? So investigating history has had curriculum out for several years now. We are not interested in adopting wholesale their curriculum, but we are interested in supplementing our units with some of their work. And so actually the state has opened up professional development. It used to be they wouldn't fund your professional development unless you wholesale adopted their materials. Now they're being a little more flexible and understanding that different districts have different needs. So what our 6th and 7th grade teachers are looking to do over the summer and then into next year is really take our new curriculum resources, which will be the primary text, but supplementing with some of the investigating history, either primary sources, activities, or lessons. And really, if you don't know anything about investigating history, it's a statewide curriculum. The focus is on inquiry-based learning. And it's all about students asking questions and being curious, and teachers doing the same. And so we're very interested in that. We're happy the state has become a little more flexible. And so we're looking to merge those things together starting next year. We're also looking to explore a pathway. I think you've heard a ton about pathways with lots of other departments. There's not a DESE endorsed history civics pathway, but we certainly are interested in creating one for ourselves. We do have a number of students who love history, who demonstrate it, who participate outside of school in a number of activities, and we want an opportunity to recognize them and help them build their expertise. So that's something we're looking to do next year. We also continue to refine the civics project. I think one reflection we had this year is we love the community engagement that we've created, but we're seeing a lot of students running up against time at the end of the year, and they're just not able to implement fully their projects. So we do want to reconfigure the timeline a little bit and push as much backwards so more students are able to actually see their project come to fruition. We've also applied for the Civics Teaching and Learning Grant, so fingers crossed. I think having a coordinator might help with that. So lots in the works there. We continue to want to just tweak that to make it better. And then as you've heard from every department, the consistent Tier 1 teaching practices across the board 6 to 12 continues to be our focus. And I couldn't not show you some of our amazing extracurriculars. We know Model UN comes before you all the time for their amazing trips. This year they started a JV Model UN, and this is them in Washington, D.C. right before they're about to head to committee. And our History Bowl this year qualified for the national competition, and so they actually went to D.C. as well just recently over April break. And so these are students, I promise they don't just sightsee, they go to committee after these photos, but these are just some highlights for kids really doing what they love and showing their passion. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question about the AP seminar. Just curious as what the kids learn in the AP seminar. How do they prepare for a test for that? Because it seems self-directed kind of. So what are they testing on?
It's a great question. An AP seminar and AP research are very different than any other course that we offer. So AP seminar, the skills there are really about researching, reading comprehensively, presenting, and then writing a comprehensive paper. So in terms of what they're graded on by the College Board, it's a mixture of an individual presentation, verbal presentation that they have to give that's recorded, individual written paper that synthesizes some of the research they've done, and then they sort of repeat that process but in a group. So a group verbal presentation and a group paper. And so those skills, not only of the researching, the writing, and the presenting, but also now the collaboration. And so those are things that are explicitly taught in the first part of the year. What's different about that course, as well as the AP research course, is that the instructors are actually partially graders. So they listen to the presentations and actually have to score them. And so there's limits on how much they can help in the second half of the course. So that's something that we're actually actively trying to work through a little bit and figure out how we're teachers, we want to help, we want to give as much feedback as possible. And so how to make sure we follow the College Board guidelines, but give as much support as possible. So that's something we're working on, especially, to be frank, opening the course to freshmen who are, freshmen are amazing, but they're the least independent of our learners, right? So having them in that course, it's challenging. They're doing very well, but it's something we want to continue to refine a little bit. It's interesting.
Any other questions for Ms. Wozniak? Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
All right, so I just globally, I thought those presentations were so good. Thank you. Thank you guys. Those were great all around presentations. Really nice. Thank you. I feel so proud of Scituate. I feel like anyone listening, hearing all this stuff that's going on is really, really impressive. I was impressed by the picture of the books. Like, we know we approve purchasing books, but I was like,
There's a lot of muscle
a
over the
lot
summer.
Exactly. Thank you. All right, so the next item on our agenda is a report of the school committee. And so for that, we are going to invite a guest. So I'm going to ask her to unmute and she can turn her camera on. And while she's doing that, I will introduce her. So at our last meeting, we mentioned that we will be joined tonight by Patty Cynical of First Speaking Group. So Patty has over 30 years of experience in talent acquisition and executive search. She holds a BA from UMass Amherst and an MBA from Babson College. She founded First Speaking Group LLC in 2001 and has worked with several school districts on a variety of senior level searches in addition to other HR projects, from workplace investigations to compensation matters. And so as a reminder, we have engaged First Speaking Group to guide the school committee in a needs assessment to assist us in determining next steps in our process of hiring a permanent superintendent for Scituate Public Schools. The work has involved listening to a range of stakeholders via focus groups and online surveys to inform a candidate profile outlining desired skills and behavioral traits that are desirable for Scituate, an updated superintendent job description, and a critique of our current superintendent contract, offering advice on ways to update it and bring it to closer alignment with our needs. So tonight we have Ms. Cynical on Zoom. And
hi, Maria.
Hello.
I'm getting a message that says I cannot start my video because it is disabled by the host.
Okay, we will work on that. Brianna maybe can help me with that. So Brianna,
Okay.
we're looking to allow.
I got it.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, and while you guys are working on that, I will keep going with my one little ending here, which is just that tonight we have Ms. Cynical here to present a summary of her findings from those various focus groups, which have included district and school level administrators, teachers, department chairs, parents in leadership roles through PTOs and school councils, high school students, town administrators, and members of the select board who interface with our superintendent, as well as families and caregivers who weighed in via an online survey that was open during the second half of April. And on behalf of the school committee, we thank everyone who gave their time to share their thoughts and perspectives throughout the process. So
Let's see. Okay, there I am.
there you are. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. And
sure. Okay. So Maria just kicked us off, and in layperson's terms, I really view this type of project is first step is gathering data from a lot of stakeholders, from students to parents to caregivers to department chairs. Many of you have probably talked to me or met with me. And the whole idea is to link that feedback back to the job description and the candidate profile, because we want to make sure that you hire the best candidate for this role. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the feedback that we received, and again, from multiple different sources, different ways. Some were individual meetings, some were group meetings, focus group meetings, and some via survey. So I'm going to give you a very high level, and then certainly if there are questions, please stop me. If I don't have the answer, I'll jot it down and make sure I get back to you, because I do have, there's a lot of data that we poured through. So let me first start with what we heard pretty consistently about some of the skills, some of the attributes, some of the competencies that all of these interested parties are looking for from your next superintendent. This is not going to be a surprise. My first comment is about communication. Every time we've done a project like this, communication comes up. So, and I'm going to give you, I always feel like the folks that give us the feedback, their words are better than my words in some respects. So I might add a few very specific direct quotes. So around communication, we heard comments around, a good listener, listening, and then making the best decision. A common theme is keeping students or kids in mind, whether it be communication or even budgeting, which I'll get to in a minute. Transparent two-way communication, a superintendent who is decisive but also explains why a decision's been made. Collaboration is sort of the next bucket that I would put some of our feedback in. Working with others, visible, accessible, classroom visibility. There was this realization that we're asking this person to be in a classroom, have office hours, work with parents, be at athletic events, and that honestly, that's a lot to balance. So there is this acknowledgement that it's going to be hard to have a foot in all of those places. There was a comment about doesn't act too quickly, the suggestion of maybe having office hours. I put the next couple of comments under the bucket of trust and conflict. I think I heard very consistently emotions around redistricting, that is going to be a concern for many. One person said, and I'm going to use their quote, staying steady and focused is important. Under educational expertise or technical expertise, there was sort of a split finding here. Some wanted classroom experience. Some didn't think that classroom experience was necessary. Tech and AI was a theme that kept surfacing. AI sort of keeping abreast of trends in the direction and how that will affect students moving forward, even as they go into our workforces. But also on the other side of that are the over-reliance on screens and, kids, whether it be obviously phones or, notebooks or desktops. So that was a pretty common theme. There was also, a few comments around this person has to have been a principal in the past. This person has to have a commitment to equity, special education, and even beyond compliance. Very few, if any, expressed any preferences for, an academic qualification, whether it be a PhD or a JD. So that didn't seem to be, high on the list of requirements. Budgeting and financial expertise came up pretty regularly. Someone that knows finance, especially for the next few years. And I'm going to give you a quote: when making hard decisions, keeping kids in mind first, being fiscally responsible. The next sort of bucket that I put I have a few comments under confident and strategic leader. Someone that communicates a shared vision, not afraid to speak up. There is this certain, one person who used the word wary. There is this weariness of making a hire that is really focused on their next chapter or their personal brand. Most of the folks that we talk to want to make sure that kids in your schools and your town are at the forefront of their career interests. Again, spending time in the classroom, being visible. One theme that came up that I think is worth pointing out is I think all of us have seen in many towns post-COVID housing prices jump. And so there was a few sort of anecdotal stories about, I used to live in a neighborhood where everyone around me, lived in $500,000 houses, and now those home values have doubled, and what has that done to sort of our demographic and parent expectations, and just sort of being mindful of that. EQ and self-awareness came up several times. Avoiding initiative overload, having consistent standards, being decisive and diplomatic. Several stakeholders talked about the importance of operational experience in this person's background. Things like facilities and athletics and legal challenges and maintenance and transportation. This is, an executive level role. So it's a very broad role. Curriculum was another topic that came up repeatedly. An evidence-based curriculum, someone that supports all groups and learners, even middle students, but also students that, might not be an athlete and might play in the band. Goal setting is important to a lot of the stakeholders. We also asked, in 5 years, if this person were to be successful, what would you be looking for? Unification and morale were consistent themes. Successfully redistricting, closing achievement and opportunity gaps, continued fiscal responsibility. Several, I would say, teachers, department chairs in particular talked about needing stability, that there's been a certain churn in superintendents. And so there is this need for stability within that leadership role. Succession planning was mentioned by quite a few individuals. One of and I thought this was a really astute observation, a couple of your teachers told me that, teachers really don't remain in roles like they had in the past. So it's not always a teacher that begins in second grade and then 30 years later is still, a second grade teacher. So sort of that whole talent acquisition and succession planning. There was also a consistent theme of meeting or exceeding the 80% benchmarks. That was important to folks within the next 5 years. Next question we asked was the greatest challenge of a new superintendent. Gaining trust between communities, families, staff. One person, put it as galvanizing our community, and the sense I got from that was not just sort of the, community of Scituate, but really sort of the more global community, including students and teachers and even central office folks and everyone within the ecosystem, if you will. Curriculum decisions, retaining important programs, morale came up quite a few times. Honest and open communicator, even if the news might not be positive. Holding others accountable, more specific goal setting, getting beyond resistance to change. There was some thought behind, thought shared. Sometimes small towns particularly repeat what has been always done in the past, and is that the best path for moving forward? Budgeting and redistricting came up several times, focusing on the whole child, test scores, but also things like social media and DEI and AI, and overall, are our kids okay? Concerns with respect to hiring a new superintendent. They want to make sure that this person can talk to all levels, that class sizes are maintained. There was a little bit of skepticism. Is this a real search because we're starting so late in the process, or are we going to appoint the interim, and is this sort of lip service to a search? There were some concerns raised about some turnover in special education. One person said we are in an acute state, and this difficult times and difficult conversations are expected. Again, the new school and the challenges around a new school. There were some concerns about if you went to the outside, having someone on board and relearn from almost the very beginning. That would be significant. There was a little bit of a debate, even when I met with small groups, about the pros and cons about going with an interim versus casting a wider net. And I think we all can, have probably seen both sides of that. Played around with it in our own heads. At least I have, for sure. There was some concerns about a leader who would bring in their own team or their own quote unquote buddies. There were also concerns about just being a very thoughtful process. It would benefit the town and the kids and the staff, but it would also benefit the candidate. Compliments about Ryan and Tom making a great team, so that was positive to hear. and then these are, at the end, I typically ask the question, is there anything that, and some of you who met with me probably heard me ask this question, but is there anything that you want to add that maybe I didn't ask the right question, or that we should have covered that we didn't cover? Some comments about aligning with the values of our school. I have a distaste for the notion of improving test scores just to improve rankings. And we did get a lot of positive feedback just about even asking opinions. And I will give the school committee and actually the entire town credit. Not a lot of school districts do this. And, I have been involved in a number of projects with different school districts, both inside of Massachusetts and outside of Massachusetts. So I do give kudos to all of you to sort of investing the time and energy to make sure you get this right. But I think a lot of people really felt that just being asked for their feedback was, unusual, in a very positive way. And Maria, I don't know if you, Nicole, and I talked about it, but I think one of the other outcomes of this is once an individual is hired in this role, the fact that we have a lot of data that we can share with this individual is going to put them light years ahead of where they would have been. So, that's a nice outcome of this as well.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm trying to be that balance of level of detail, but also, I could talk about this for 2 hours, and I think none of you want to be seeing me at 10 o'clock tonight. So, tell me, ask me any questions. Maybe I skimmed over things, or maybe I didn't do a deep dive into one area that you think I should have.
Can I ask?
Yeah, please.
So thank you so much for going through this. I appreciate it. As a data lover myself, I am very happy to hear all that you found. I was wondering, I made some notes as you were talking, and one thing we've individually talked about is sort of this profile of a superintendent. And I was just wondering, I heard you say communication, visibility, collaborative, trust and conflict, and then a slew of technical skills, strategic and confident. You talked then again about dispositional EQ, self-awareness. I'm wondering, did you land on any words that would help us think about a superintendent profile? I know that's a tough question, but I'm just wondering, as a researcher, person who did all this, what you think about that idea.
Yeah. So one of the next step is for me to take all of this data and then develop it into a job description profile, sort of. I know that you have a document that has been used in the past. I want to make sure that document that you'll be hiring against incorporates this data. But if I were to sort of jump up 50 feet, communication is important, visibility is important, decisiveness is important, a kid-centric leader is important. When we talked about budgeting, when we talked about curriculum, when we talked about leadership style, it all came back to, and if this person can't make the best decisions with kids in mind, and I'm going to sound a little bit more sarcastic than I mean to, but then they shouldn't be considered for this role. If they don't get that, that's a full stop.
Thanks.
Sure. Did that answer your question okay?
Yeah, it did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Other questions?
Comment,
Yes, comment, yeah.
thank you for all your work. And I know we all did some stuff too. No, I think this is all great information to process and to help us make our decision. So thank you.
Yeah, I can make a comment too. When I hear the list, obviously it's quite a list. It's a big list. But then I think to myself, good, I'm glad that our community has such high expectations for our next leader, because I think that's right. All of these are right.
Yeah.
You know, I think of course we want all of these things, and I'm really pleased to hear such a well-rounded vision that came out of it. That makes me feel confident in the work that was done, because I do think every kind of facet of this role has been touched. And it is a big role. You know, there are a lot of headings and there are a lot of bullets on that job description, a lot of hats. And we were looking at the old version of the job description. You know, it is a bit outdated, and there's definitely room to add and underscore some of these areas that came up here, and just that I think are also just more consistent with other districts and what they put in these job descriptions. So I'm really excited for that piece, because I think it will serve us quite well. And to the point Patty made at the end, this is a great roadmap for us and whoever comes in to have some thoughts from the broader community about what the priorities are. And I don't think they're far from things that we're already working on. So
Agreed.
Yeah, I would say there was very consistent themes. You know, if I talked to a department chair versus a teacher versus, you know, a school committee member or a union member, I mean, there were very consistent themes. And one of the things that I really enjoyed is it didn't take a lot for me to pull information out of people. So, you know, people were pretty okay with sharing, and very candid sharing, which is what we want, right? We want people to feel comfortable voicing their perspective, sharing their opinions and experiences. So I think people were very comfortable and candid about the feedback, but there's definitely some consistent threads, you know, across all stakeholders for sure.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, Maria and I had the privilege of talking to a lot of caregivers, and I would agree. I was so impressed with the great conversations, and it was very supportive and a lot of popcorning off of each other's ideas, which I really love to see. I think, I know you mentioned it, Patty, and I know others on the committee have. I just want to circle back to these concerns around, is this a real search? Is it a thoughtful process? I guess I just really want the community to hear that I hope that the question we're focusing on is, what's a Scituate need in a superintendent? Because we haven't even started a search yet, right? Like that, I feel like we're jumping the gun by saying, is this a proper search? I think what I hope the community recognizes is we're doing our due diligence to figure out, this is why they call it a needs assessment, right? What do we need as a district? What does the community care about? And then sort of thinking about who we have, what we might need. And so just being really mindful that I feel like this is a super thoughtful process. And I'm so glad that we have had a chance to talk to the community in the ways that we have. So I hope people are hearing that part of this, that this was a lot of work.
I think absent this, what we would have done is move forward with an outdated job description and just gone out there and said, hey, who wants to be the next superintendent of Scituate Public Schools? And that would not have been the right move. We needed to pause, and we needed to do those updates. And in order to do those updates, the best, I think, thing we could have done is to ask a lot of people to contribute.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, and I hope that people also are hearing that and can see that perspective.
Yeah, I can speak to the whole search process, having been on a number of search committees.
Yes.
This would have been very helpful, right, in the past.
Super helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I also wonder, and I know, Patty, you're just still doing some work to collate the data and all that to get back to us. But I wonder, and I'm asking the committee genuinely, you know, is there an opportunity for us as a committee to use this data to think about our evaluation of our current interim superintendent? Because we do, I mean, I feel like one of our most important jobs, if not the most important, is hiring and monitoring the work of the superintendent. And even though we have an interim superintendent, he understands that at the end of the year, we're gonna do an evaluation. And typically we use the DESI form, but I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to create something from this and do what we've done in previous years.
I don't think we can.
I think
we could as a start, maybe.
I
I
think-
know
well,
it has
no,
to
I
go in
think-
the DESI.
Yeah, I wish we could.
I think
This would be perfect.
may have to do both things.
Yeah.
Because I think there has to be a step. Well, first of all, I do think from DESI's perspective, we have to use their
Yeah.
template and their form, and so we have to do that anyhow.
Yeah.
It's like a separate thing. But
Yeah.
I do think we have to now that we have this data and we have, we will be getting the candidate profile and everything like that, we do have to then take the step of assessing whether or not Dr. Rob is the person who we think matches, or if we do feel like we need to go out and do a broader search.
Yeah.
So that is the next step, in fact.
Yeah.
So I do think that makes sense.
Okay.
To figure out a tool for that, and we need to do that. And I think using the same process that we use for the annual evaluation could be a good way to do that. So is that what you're like?
Yeah. I mean, that because when we do, for folks who don't know, when we do the evaluation, typically because of open meeting laws and all that sort of stuff, usually one person takes the lead in sort of getting the form together. Two people work to collate the data once everybody has individually done a form or page and then sends it. So like we're not collaborating, we're not sharing a document and collaborating with each other. We each do it. And so I just wonder, if we could take some of these themes and create a table of some sort where we each spend some time reflecting on these, this profile, if you will, compared to how Dr. Rapp has done or what he, how he presents as a superintendent as a way to think about, a search or not.
Yeah, that's
I
our
don't know.
next decision.
Okay.
Is do we need to do a search?
Yeah.
And in order to make that decision, we need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think to me that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it does. I think it's just, I think it's a matter of timing too, of like, if we were to do a search, when does that search, and does that just mean we had created an interim for another year? And I think that there's a solution either way, but just something to think about as we decide what to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of search firms that we talked to about this in the fall, when we first realized we were going to be in this position, it was like October. So that was not the right time to do a search regardless. But May is also not the right time,
Right.
or June is not the right time either. And so I think it would probably mean, yes, we would extend, if we were to do a search, extend Dr. Rob's term as interim at least into next year, part of next year or something. I don't know. We'd have to get some input from them on when is the right time. I feel like it's January is the right time, when a lot of districts are opening up searches. There's kind of a season, if you will.
But we would also have to, I don't know what Dr. Rapp's current contract is, 1 year, so it's up July 1st or June 30th, so
we'd have to
make some sort of decision by
Yes.
then.
Yes. Well, I think that's the plan
time
anyway,
is of the
right?
essence.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I feel like we want to move on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
guess
sounds
the
good.
question is, if we were to create some sort of document for each of us individually to think about Dr. Rob against this new standard, if you will, informal standard, is there more work for Patty before we do that? I'm just curious. I don't know what's next, what you and Nicole had talked to her
So
about.
Patty, how far are you from a written version of the candidate profile?
This week.
Okay.
Mean,
Okay.
you'll get
Okay.
it this week.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, because I think once we have that,
Then we
that
could do
would
it.
be essential
Okay.
as a starting point.
Yeah.
Against which this tool would be built, and then we'd have to do our pieces of writing, and then there would be the collate. Okay, that's great.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for Patty?
No, this was great.
All right. Thank you so much for joining
Thanks,
us today,
Patty.
Patty. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Absolutely.
Be in touch. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All righty. So moving. We have a report of the policy subcommittee with several bullets under this agenda item. So we'll start with the B policy, second reading. Janice and Mr. Lynch to take the lead on this tonight.
So I think we decided that that voting on all of them, and all of them would have the, approved by school committee on this date.
Oh yeah, Marie was gonna reflect on how she
We did.
felt about that.
Yeah, we reflected, and we discussed.
Okay.
And we felt like a
take credit.
simplified format
Got it.
would
Yeah.
be best.
Okay.
There's really no need to necessarily know exactly all that other stuff
Yeah.
that has,
Great.
and that we felt like a simplified version.
Yeah.
It'll be fine, you just put the approved on. Yeah. If they all are approved this evening, it'll be May 4th, 2026.
And we'll probably go back and do that to the ones.
Yeah, we'll do that with
we've
the
all-
dates.
Great.
Yeah, make sure they're all
Makes sense.
noted.
And in the backup is our version and the mask version and the changes we suggested. Yeah. Ryan wants to add anything?
No, we just went through the process. It was lots of reading and making sure that trying to simplify and update our policies and in our line of work, policy is extremely important. It's the first question when anybody asks, can we do this or how should we approach that? So we really just wanted to make sure that the policies align with our current practices and protect our students and our staff and lead us forward in a positive way. So that was our work, and there weren't a significant number of changes, but I think it brings our B policies into a current state that's aligns with how our district is working.
Yeah, it was mostly just cleaning them up.
Last time we mentioned that this is adding BAA, evaluation of school committee operational procedures, which we were missing. And it's deleting the policy, the exhibition policy on public comment, which we felt was redundant with the actual policy. So those were kind of the two are bigger.
And there were a couple that Massachusetts didn't have, right, that you got rid of.
Yeah, and there was, this also includes school councils. So this will allow us to have those meet more frequently and have members stay on for more than 1 year terms, which we have found to be problematic, just in terms of continuity. Yeah. So we have to vote.
Nice
So
work.
I will entertain a motion.
And I can make the motion.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I make a motion that the school committee vote to approve the B policies as presented.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Nice work.
Woo-hoo, I know, we do feel really
It
proud of
sounds- it
this.
is satisfying.
It's very
To be like, get rid of that.
That's a lot.
You don't need that. Yeah.
It'll be more satisfying when it's official.
Hopefully in 3
But done. All right, so next up, we have the bullying prevention and intervention plan update. I believe that is Mr. Marsh.
It is. Thank you. Just need a minute to find the right screen.
It's appendix H if you're looking for it.
Thank you. So I'm here tonight to provide the committee and the community with an update on the bullying prevention and intervention plan. So every 3 years, we're required to update our bullying prevention and intervention plan. That's a requirement, but I would share tonight that we had a full district task force engaged in this work over the course of this year, starting in December. So we pulled together a bullying prevention intervention task force, and our goal was to redevelop and update our plan. And I just listed out some of the steps that we took, including collecting stakeholder input, assessing our needs, resources, and making sure that we're supporting student, staff, and families, and really critically looking at where we need to get better and where we're doing things well. So Honestly, this was probably some of the most valuable work that I was involved in this year as in terms of the groups that I belong with, and it couldn't have happened without all of the support from parents, from teachers, from school committee members, principals. So I think we're sharing something tonight that lays the foundation for some improvements in our work ahead. So this is a list of the people who comprise the task force. So I'm just going to take a minute to read through that. Just the people who were involved. The print is small. So in alphabetical order: Principal Ryan Beatty, Dr. Borkowski, Krista DiGaravilla, Sue Egan, Jenny Gazzo, Julie Hickey, Samantha Heyer, Katie Labadia, Amy Mahoney, Principal Mary Oldak, Officer Riley Pressler, Tom Rabb, Officer Nick Sherry, Tracy Shepard, and Andrea Spinelli. So that represents a very good cross-section of our district from various roles, from SROs to principals, school counselors, people in central office, and parents as well. We met starting on December 10th and had 3 meetings after that. So imagine, 4 school committee meetings, all focused on this really important area of work. So we could have spent more time, but I feel like this was an honest and sincere effort. I'll talk just a little bit about, I would break this down into 3 stages. And the first stage was a data review. So as you saw in the presentations tonight, we have some pretty good sources of data. They're not perfect, but let me describe each of them. So every year we're required to report to the state how many allegations of bullying does the school receive, and of those allegations, how many of those are substantiated. So we took a look at that data. I can show you that in a minute. We also looked at our vocal data, which is an assessment of student experiences in schools. And it's given in grades 4, 5, 8, and 10. So that was another data source. We looked at our HSA data. And we also sent a survey out to our entire community, including families and staff. And we had 524 responses from families and 216 from staff. And in terms of getting a good slice of data, I think that's excellent. And we heard the survey was designed by Dr. Englander from the Mass Aggression Reduction Center at Bridgewater. This is just public share out of that data that we collect every year. This is the total number of allegations of bullying that we had in 24-25 as well as 23-24. And then on the right-hand side of the table, it shows how many of those are confirmed. So that's a breakdown by each of our schools. This is collected every year. This is the vocal data. This is just one slice, but I just want to show you that in grades 4, 5, 8, and 10, our response rate was 92%. So this was a place for students to share sort of their experiences. How safe do they feel in school? Do they witness acts of bullying, harassment, and intimidation? I know that students answer these questions after the MCAS, so it's a challenging state of mind, but I also think that when we can hear from 92% of the students that are taking that, I think that is important. Our group also looked at the HSA data as well and tried to match the HSA data with results from vocal. And so we see areas where there are challenges with peer relationships in the light blue there at the bottom. We see in some areas where that's a strength. So Tammy Arundel and Greg Ranieri helped to, at one of our meetings, present this data to make sure our group thought about this as well. I would compare, so when I showed the number of allegations, I would also compare that to, these are data extractions from what our families responded with. So our group, I think, really approached it critically and said, well, we had allegations of bullying in the single digits at elementary, but here we have families reporting that 14% would say, my child has been repeatedly targeted by another child or group of children. Or there was a one-time incident. So you can see, 54.5%. This is an issue that really, 45% of our community recognizes that this is a really important issue for their students and their families. So I share these because we know that this important issue isn't entirely captured by our state report. And by following this process, we really tried to tune into what students, staff, and families are sharing with us. So this was the elementary data slice. This is the Gates, data slice about the same, where 40 to 50% are saying that this is an issue, and close to similar at the high school, but a little larger portion of the pie is no, my child has not experienced this issue. I would acknowledge that I would validate families' experiences that they are reporting accurately. We also recognize in our group that we need to do a better job of communicating back with families the steps that are being taken, and you'll see this later on. But I think if you look through this data and you say, well, why are there so few formal allegations and then there's so many on the survey data, we recognize that there's definitely a communication gap, and you'll see some of our recommendations for improvement there. I also just took away how important this is to our community, and I'm really glad that our group reached out and collected this information in a timely and fresh format. So these are just some bullet points that just synthesizes what I just said, that this is a significant number. And if what could be more important than the safety of our students and staff? So we acknowledge that as a district. Even if incidents of confirmed bullying are low, we know and acknowledge that the impacts are serious and lasting, and we need to try to make that number do everything we can to make it zero. We also take away that we do have a research-based anti-bullying curriculum through Character Strong. That's a requirement of the state. But we can also continue to make the lessons more effective and more integrated. So that was a takeaway. And we have some pretty good data sources to monitor how we're doing, but we need to monitor at more regular intervals to ensure students are getting the support they need, and so that staff feel confident in the curriculum and protocols that we're using. So we feel good about sort of the monitoring pieces that are in place, but we know we have to more regularly do it. I think one of the things that came up on the committee was also like, couldn't we go through this process almost every year to take a look at it? And you'll see some of those recommendations coming forward as just being doing things in a more regular fashion. This was an important part of our process too, was going through Character Strong, where we had Ms. Rundle, Mr. Ranieri talking about our SEL curriculum, as well as our social emotional learning representatives, where our curriculum was meeting our needs and where it needed to be improved. So the takeaways from the curriculum review were we just have to continue to provide staff with more support. So one example was this year, one of our principals reached out and said, I really could use more support with the tier 2 and tier 3 resources with Character Strong, which we moved quickly to secure for all of our schools. But I think that speaks to the more work that we need to do to continue to make sure that our staff feel like they have resources to support students and families. Key takeaway was also improving how we share data back with staff and families so they can support students. There was an important point where one of our teachers said, I have this data that I get about students, but I'm not sure if families get it. And we had people say, I feel really comfortable talking to families about MCAS data. I don't feel as comfortable talking to families about HSA data. So I think that was a really important, if we think about what's the purpose of school, but to help students participate in a, in a safe, supportive community outside of their house, we need to make sure we're having conversations about how students are feeling, how they're interacting with each other, making sure that they feel safe and supported. So we definitely have a commitment to improve how we share data back with families about how students are doing since we're collecting it. And the last bullet is just communication. What are our strategies to prevent and respond to bullying? And another key takeaway that we have is that we really want to lean into the preventative aspects and not just the reporting aspects. So a lot of time is often spent like, make sure there's a place on the website where somebody can click, make sure there's an anonymous place where students could drop a note. That's all very important, but so is being proactive and having students learn strategies, for effective, responses to, perceived bullying, or helping students be really strong allies and not just, going, empowering staff and students. So those were a lot of the conversations that we had as a group. So that leads us to the improvement of the plan. So inside of your packet tonight, you'll see our 16-page 2026 draft bullying prevention and intervention plan. In a different color is the improved language. In there's more emphasis on digital safety, preventing and reporting cyberbullying, making a commitment to share anti-bullying and reporting resources more than one time per year, turning up the amount of time we spend doing data reviews, not waiting until the state requirement kicks in at year 3, and improving our professional development to be more proactive rather than just reactive. If I were to speak for our group, I'd also say that we definitely recognized the places where the plan stops and then our work continues. So we came up with several bullet points for things that we want to do outside of the bullying prevention and intervention plan. Again, improve commitments to data sharing with families, making sure that tech use aligns with the bullying prevention and intervention plan, improving staff training, communicating openly about the ways in which we're working on bullying prevention and intervention, and perhaps running parent information nights where we talk specifically about those efforts that are underway, both for how to work with students who've been impacted and how to work with students who are engaging in behaviors that are contributing to harassment, intimidation, or bullying. So we want to continue to strengthen our processes for monitoring, flagging, investigating. According to with our tech policy, we know that we're constantly monitoring staff technology, student technology, and we want to make sure our process is safe and effective for that. Making sure that our investigation reports meet our obligations to students, families, and staff. It surfaced that there's inconsistency with like we're following the law, but there's inconsistency with how we're sharing information back with families, and we can get better at letting families know the steps that have been taken as part of the process. And that showed up in the surveys and from the anecdotal contributions of people on the task force. This is just a clear standout of what I just said, that really supporting people who are involved, both people who've been impacted previously as targets or people who've been aggressors before, and really making sure that people get the customized support in an ongoing way that they deserve. And making sure that across buildings we do a good job with, these situations can have significant impact. So we want to make sure when students transition buildings that there's a tight plan in place, it's proactive. These situations are obviously anxiety inducing, and by having clear plans in place and a commitment to that, that'll help to make sure that that transition goes smoothly. So the next steps following the bullying prevention and intervention task force would be for us to provide a comment period. So I would like to share out these slides and the draft bullying prevention and intervention plan to collect more feedback from families. We got some great survey results, but we need to provide a comment period. So between now and June 15th, I'll collect, it'll be a simple opportunity for people to complete a survey, ask additional questions, or provide more feedback before the comment period closes for the committee. And those questions would be addressed, and then if there's additional pieces of feedback, those could be incorporated into the plan. And then on June 15th, the school committee, if it so chooses, could vote on the updated bullying prevention and intervention plan, so we will have accomplished our objective for the year. So that's a 10-minute review of the work that we provided. I would invite Dr. Bukowski as a representative of the school committee, any additional comments that you would have, or I see Kristen DeGarville is here as well. Thank you for representing our group. If there are more questions, those attendees would be help round it out.
I mean, I echo what Ryan said about appreciating the opportunity to work with the group. It was great to meet some new people, and also I felt like, Kristen, I'd be curious of your opinion. I felt like it took a real humility for folks to be in that space, because teachers and adjustment counselors were admitting that they didn't know about a process. I know, Peter, we've talked about like not knowing what the process was, or that we would really like to see this. So I really loved, there was some vulnerability and honesty in our conversation. So I really appreciated that courage that took. For me, I thought the good news was, I do think for the most part, we have a strong policy. I think what we all recognized is that the fidelity piece is what's missing. Like, we have a lot of great guidance in that policy. Like when I was reading through and saw the explanation of what we should be providing to families, like we don't really do that in a district way. And I think that's something you mentioned, Ryan, because when I've talked to families who've experienced this, they care deeply about repair, right? That they know that if your child's in 6th grade, they're going to be with these kids for 6 or 7 more years, and they want to think about that. So I think it's interesting that we just had a conversation about wanting a superintendent that is kids first and values focused. And so I think there's opportunities for us to think about as caregivers, how do we sort of come the same way to this space? Like, if we're putting our kids first, then how do we as families approach the work of bullying, rather than sort of circling the wagons, but like really having an open mind about this. I think the other thing that really became, when Greg and Tammy came, and then we had a conversation with some of the counselors, what became really evident is it'd be great to have some visible language around the schools. Like, we know that, unfortunately when 9/11 happened, the see something, say something became really big. And like, I know character strong is a thing, but we also heard from teachers that, well, they do it when they can't always fit it in. And so what could we take from that curriculum and have it like splattered on the wall so that the first graders see the language they could be using, the 11th graders see it, and it becomes part of our ethos that I have a responsibility. And if I see this, oh, I remember seeing that at the library. If I see this, I should do this, right? Just so I thought that was something so simple could be quite powerful. So I just love that we're not talking about huge interventions. We're talking about small things where we have resources that could give us ideas. So I just loved the conversations that we got to have with different people. It was great.
So I would just say, I know that the goal of this committee wasn't to give us statistics per se. So I first want to commend the committee. I think this is great information, and I'm really proud that the policy and everything's being reviewed, and I agree with everything. But we do have a bullying problem in Scituate, right? I just go into the numbers here, and probably it's most likely that if you had a child that was bullied, that you probably responded to this survey. It's probably more likely.
I still think we have a problem, though. I think you're
right.
Oh yeah, we definitely have.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the middle school, 6 to 8. You have 140 responses. You have over 50%. So it's 75 students out of 600 who have been bullied at the middle school per this data. And that's a problem. So again, this has nothing to do with the committee. The committee, that's why you guys are in place to help solve this. But we do have a bullying problem. And I know that that's just something that I wanted to mention. And one other very minor item that I wanted to mention is, I know the response at the high school are very limited, but when we reference staff, we also have coaches who aren't part of our staff, and they may be missing, if they're not teachers, they may be missing staff training on bullying. So I think that might be a piece that needs to be looked at. It's probably very small, but I think it's a piece.
Yeah.
And bus drivers.
Bus driver, anyone that's not getting, any staff that's referenced in here that's not part of in-building staff, those other folks I think need to be, I guess, trained is the word, or at least open to this. But again, this has nothing to do with the committee. You guys have done amazing. This is just something that I'm thinking as I'm reading through this.
Yeah, I think those are, I think, that's why we included the family survey and what we provide to the state. And I would say, in our principals, our teachers work extremely hard to investigate, to support students, and they try to do everything they can to resolve these. So those are some of the statistics. And you also see how families and students feel. So part of it is, and I know you used the phrase there's a bullying problem. When you get 2,700 students together, there are sometimes going to be challenges. Though we want that number to be 0. Right. And at the same time, for that discrepancy between what's reported and then what families are for the ones who responded to the survey, we need to commit ourselves to communicating better so that families feel like if something doesn't go well for their student, that they feel like it's being addressed. And we saw an opportunity in there where families in that survey were reporting that they want to hear more about the steps that are taken proactively and reactively. So I would just say there's, in that gap between the DESE reported data and the family data, that's our space to operate and do better. So I think everyone there is committed to that. Because sometimes what came up too is if someone, even if you look at the percentages of what's substantiated versus what's reported, in each of those discrepancies is a communication challenge. We need to communicate more quickly. Students need to feel safe in reporting information. So I think everybody took it with the same seriousness that you did, that we want to close that gap so people feel like there are fewer cases, that the school is responsive. So I appreciate you sharing what the data says, and I think that was the reaction that everybody had, that there was a real commitment to doing the best we can for every kid and every family.
I mean, I also think, going back to the language, right? If we think about think about when my 8th grader was kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, I'd meet with a teacher about his ELA or math scores. And we'd be like, oh, he's either meeting or not meeting. Well, fast forward 3 or 4 years later, now we have multiple data points where it's like, oh, he's here, but here's what's actually going on. He's not doing the writing, he's doing well here. So imagine with bullying, if we had the language to talk more about, you put 2,700 kids together, there's gonna be tension. So then a teacher and a family can discern, this is tension, this is conflict. It looks like bullying, but actually here's what's going, right? Like you start to educate us and teachers on what this is and isn't, just like we have with other data with math and ELA. And I think that's the approach that I'm thinking about is like, how do we empower everybody to have more language to talk about tension versus conflict versus harassment and bullying so that we can get clear and discern what it is and what it isn't. Because we don't have the language, as soon as we see tension, that's a bully. Might not be. Might be a kid that's struggling with something and he took it out on the closest person to him. Doesn't mean he shouldn't do it to the kid, but it might be a different approach. So we really need to get language and get clear about what it is that's going on. So I feel like we've done this with ELA and math, and now we need to do it in this area.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I just had two questions. One, I was curious, when does the character strong instruction happen in the high school? Like advisory, I assume, or how does that? Who delivers that, and during what time of the day? Those levels.
Yeah, and when it was presented, Mr. Ranieri talked about the extent to which it's infused in wellness, places like that, and we know from the middle school and high school schedules that that's not always the most consistently experienced. So I think that is something that we'll take a look at. When Greg and Tammy presented too, there were some they had some next steps on areas of work. One of them was also working with Melissa Casa, the Director of Support Engagement and Advocacy, because for the school adjustment counselors too at the elementary level, they just talked about an opportunity to be more coordinated both across our elementaries, but also vertically. Yeah. And there was just a lot of people sort of stepping in to try to fill a need as best they could, but we believe that with the resource, meaning the creation of that position and the person who's been hired for that position, that we have a real opportunity to have expertise to do that work. So we see an opportunity there for those roles to get more support so that the students are getting exposure to the curriculum.
And some of the middle and high school teachers didn't know that they could share that data with families.
Right.
Like it's become part of the culture at the elementary school that they bring that data, but I don't think there's something lost in translation. Some were doing it somewhere.
At the elementary level, is Character Strong delivered primarily by the classroom teacher, or does the adjustment counselor push in do lessons? I know they have assemblies, right?
I think it's the
schools
classroom
that
teacher.
are focused on the themes, the monthly themes and things like that. So it does seem there is some school level overarching things happening, but it's mostly delivered by the classroom teacher.
Right, classroom teacher, and then there's like PBIS efforts, at the different schools too. And like I said, just this year where people are asking for more resources for like the tier 2 and tier 3, which school adjustment counselors could use. So that's a need that's been identified and met, but we have more work to do to implement those. So that's where that stands now.
This all is excellent. I think when I read it, made a lot of sense and feels like the right entry points for us. One other just thing that it reminded me about was that in the fall at the MASC conference, I had attended a session presented by some districts in Western Mass that were using a peer mediator model at the high school. I'll have to go back and find the name, but they were all very interested in it because it was achieving some of what you're talking about, Carrie, which is that it was giving kids more nuanced language and it was embedding the kids who had the ability to kind of use that language right in the classroom, because they had this, they talked about how when something happens in a classroom, the teacher is either there to intervene and say, hey, wait a second, we're going to talk about this right now. And maybe the teacher has that skill, and the kids who experience that benefit from the teacher being able to intervene, say, hold on, we're going to stop, we're going to talk about this. But then they leave the classroom and they go to lunch, they're talking in the hall. And they're all saying, oh, so-and-so said this in the classroom. And all the kids who heard about that don't benefit from what the teacher then said. And so it has this kind of like ripple effect in the culture of a building when things like this happen, incidents happen and things. But when you have kids that are able to kind of also intervene, not in the same way a teacher would, but they're just embedded in the peer group. They were talking a lot about how that has really succeeded in shifting the conversation.
The teacher who runs, don't we have the teacher who oversees the peer mediation at the high school was on the bullying task force. So she was very
Julie started
interested.
in it,
Yeah,
right?
I feel like that could be an area
She's
too.
very interested in
a 2.0.
integrating.
I think some of the stuff is like just we gotta do some of this, but that feels like a next
She talked a lot
loftier
about
thing to aspire to or look into.
She
Perhaps
talked a lot about wanting to be involved.
Yeah, there's restorative justice, there's all these other established research-based programs that we could also consider looking into when we get to that. But just to your point, I think was very well made about just and yours too, Peter. Like there's a culture of change that will take time.
Yeah.
So with the approval of the committee, what I'll do is send this out in the next 48 hours to families so that people have a chance to look at the slides, and this would be the comment period. And then I'll collect that feedback and then share back with you on June 15th some of the feedback that we've received during the comment period.
Right, I think you said it, but is this our 3-year review cycle or is this preemptive of that? This is a 3-year cycle.
Yes, this is the 3-year review cycle, but we would like to do, our hope is that we would look at our data holistically every year to stay on top of how things are progressing and where we might need to adjust. So that's our plan.
I like that piece, the yearly review. I don't know why Desi has it like, oh, just do it every 3 years. Like, that doesn't seem adequate across the state.
All right, good to move on?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Lastly, in this section, we have just a closing of the loop on the policies IJNDB, student responsible use of technology, and JICFB, bullying prevention, which we had brought up at our last meeting as policies that the subcommittee was going to take a look at to see if we wanted to make any updates. So I'll again ask Ryan and Janice to share what we talked about. And this is also in our memo.
Well, we took a look at it because
Yeah, understand.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Take care. Good night.
Good night.
Because of incidents that have happened in other districts with technology and harassment and bullying. And we wanted to make sure that our policies were adequate to deal with the issues that the towns have been having. And we decided that we do have very strong policies for both.
So we looked at guidance from DESE, which references the 2024 Massachusetts Law and Act to Prevent Abuse and Exploitation, which should well cover what happened in these other districts in addition to their policies. We also looked at 2 other districts that have included specific callouts on AI-generated images. We looked at Haverhill and Wellesley. But as Janice mentioned, ultimately we felt as though our policies are strong as written. We did talk about potentially updating handbooks. Handbooks might be a place to add something like this in. And so our Director of Educational Technology attended our meeting as well, and she and Ryan will take on that next piece of discussing at the school levels if and how to include that, and those will come for our review in June. Ryan, did you want to add anything else?
We thank you. Where we know that this was sort of an intersection of current events with guidance from the governor. We know that tech continues to evolve. We want families and schools to know that anything that contributes to a hostile environment for a student in school, even if something were made out of school, is something that the school will investigate and absolutely follow through to make sure that that student is has a safe environment and that other students would face consequences for that. So we wanted to review that as a group, and also we want to be clear with students and add information in the handbook. So it's we list out what our expectations are and just educate students in clear language about what's acceptable and what isn't. So that's what we want to do with the handbook component. So we feel like our policies cover some of the ways that AI could be used, against other students, and we want to make that clear in our handbook. So that's all I would add.
All right, thank you. All right, next on our agenda is warrants. Okay. Subcommittee reports. Anyone have a subcommittee? Okay. This is not a subcommittee report, but I did have one thing that I wanted to share that I forgot to share earlier. So I'm going to share it now. In honor of Teacher Appreciation Week, I have pulled together just 3 little slides that I wanted to share because I couldn't resist the opportunity to just give our teachers a shout out. And also I think it's really, interesting. Also, I'm a huge nerd for this topic, and I did study this in grad school, so I can't help myself. But I just wanted to share the data about teachers because I think it's a nice way to honor them during this week, particularly. So the data is very clear about the degree to which teachers make a difference. So over there on the right side is a bunch of different studies and statistical analyses of ways that teachers really have positive effects on student achievement. They are the most influential school-based variable linked to increasing student achievement 2 or 3 times most other factors. And they have positive effects beyond academics, student attendance, certain social emotional skills, on-track grading progression. So I wanted to share that. Then this is my how do teachers work their magic. So I think we talk a lot about this, and this is like something that every teacher learns about when they're becoming a teacher, the instructional core, the relationship between the teacher, the student, and the content. This is really, this is a very oversimplified way of saying this, but I think this is kind of how learning happens. And teachers really have to have a strong relationship to both their content and their students. And so sometimes we hear like, oh, SEL versus academics, and it's not, it's both of those things. And so a lot of people will talk about the art and the science of teaching, and I think this does a nice job of really simplifying that and showing that teachers need to make 1,000,001 decisions every single day throughout every single lesson and all the time when they're talking to a student, when they're designing an assessment or correcting an assessment or working on their lesson, whatever they're doing. They're constantly kind of negotiating this relationship that they have to both the student and the content, and that's what allows the student to develop their relationship with content. The way that this sort of applies to us, there's some research from TNTP. It's a little bit old now, 2012, but Greenhouse Schools, I thought it was a really interesting piece. They studied where do teachers really thrive? So what are the types of environments that teachers go, they stay, they feel really happy and well supported. And so I think this kind of speaks to some of the stuff that we do. And these are places that really prioritize teacher hiring and development. So they really focus on professional development and making sure that teachers have what they need to continue to grow professionally. They often share a common vision of what excellent instruction looks like. They're really proactive about providing feedback to their teachers. And a lot of teachers in these schools have high efficacy, though they really believe that they have high standards for their students and that their students are able to achieve those standards and that they feel really efficacious in helping their students do that. So I think that's kind of an interesting piece of research here. And lastly, true instructional leadership, leadership practices that really focus on teaching and learning, high quality PD, and that includes adequate teacher collaboration time, which is something that we've talked a lot about with teacher planning blocks and the way that we think about our PD schedule throughout the day. And we've also heard a lot of teachers and department chairs mention the value of this collaboration time. We've really put more time towards this in recent years. So I wanted to call that out specifically. And lastly, slides. I'm sorry, I said three. I said three. I forgot that I made an assignment at the end. I thought this was lovely. This is from Teacher to Teacher. The little graphic is actually meant for teachers, and it's a way to sort of, remind them how important they are. But I think this week it's a nice idea to ask someone to tell you about their favorite teacher, or tell someone about yours, and as a teacher to remind them that they get to be that person for a lot of our people. So that's it. Little feel good way to end our meeting. I think that is everything. Yeah. Okay.
Motion to adjourn 8:50.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.